Chapter 1531. However, if that was the case, the old tree and the skeletal king's auras would be too powerful and would be easily detected by the managers. In that case, it would be difficult for them to move around. Although the old tree and the skeletal king were no longer afraid of the most powerful eye of nature after devouring everything, reincarnation supremacy would probably be wary of them once they unleashed their powerful strength. This was also the reason why Yi Xian did not devour everything immediately. Who asked reincarnation supremacy to be so timid? After the old tree and the skeletal king broke through, the young man did not even last 3 rounds before his head was chopped off by the skeletal king. He did not even have the chance to say his last words. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yi Xian quickly got the old tree to pluck the young man's eye. However, at that moment, another eye suddenly opened in the sky. It was the eye of nature again. However, Yi Xian was very familiar with the eye of nature this time. Oh no, let's go. Without hesitation, Yi Xian hid the old tree and Megatron in the planting space before leaving through the void. This eye of nature was the one that had joined forces with the other 2 managers to kill the peak 9th level Samsara realm skeletal dragon. It was a subordinate of reincarnation supremacy. If Yi Xian was targeted by it, he would probably have no choice but to break through. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and directly entered the void door. However, before that, the eye of nature had already seen Yi Xian. It's this kid. The powerhouse recognized Yi Xian. However, he sensed that Yi Xian was only at the 4th level Samsara realm, so there was nothing to be afraid of. However, Yi Xian was only at the 1st level Samsara realm back then. How was it possible that he had broken through to the 4th level Samsara realm in such a short time? Moreover, he had even killed one of the managers under his command. His strength was not weak at all. However, the powerhouse did not intend to report such a small matter to reincarnation supremacy. Instead, he began to wander around but did not discover Yi Xian. What he did not know was that Yi Xian had already broken through the void and left that place. Huff, huff, that scared me to death. Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he reacted quickly. Otherwise, this matter would have been troublesome. At the same time, he guessed that the strongest subordinate of reincarnation supremacy, the Eye of all things, should know where reincarnation supremacy was. As long as he captured him and searched his soul, he might be able to find out where reincarnation supremacy was. However, this matter could be discussed later. Young master, these are that person's eyes. The old tree handed the 2 eyes of myriad forms to Yi Xian. He had also taken off his universe ring earlier, but Yi Xian was not interested in these things. Very good. Yi Xian nodded in satisfaction. When he received the 2 eyes of nature, he immediately devoured them. Ding! The host has devoured an eye of nature. The effect of the force of nature has increased. Ding! The host has devoured an eye of nature. The effect of the force of nature has increased. Ding! Host has comprehended celestial eyes. Space-crossing eyes. System notifications rang one after another, letting Yi Xian know that it was worth it to expose himself this time. Originally, there were only 5 celestial eyes. They were the Eye of Insight, the Eye of Perception, the Eye of Void, the Eye of Soul, and the Eye of Eternity. Now, there was an additional space-crossing eyes. The space-crossing eyes allowed one to use the Eye of Nature and the Eye of Death, as well as the Eye of Insight, the Eye of Perception, and the Eye of Soul. Based on the power of the young man just now, he had obtained the Eye of Nature from a heaven-reaching beast. He had spent a lot of time practicing it to the point where he could use it across space. Now, this ability had been obtained by Yi Xian. Not only that, but Yi Xian could also use it with various celestial eyes. The effect was quite good. At that moment, Yi Xian directly used his Eye of Transcendence and condensed an eye of myriad forms. This huge Eye of Nature was condensed a day's journey away from Yi Xian. Coincidentally, there was a small force under this Eye of Nature. Then, Yi Xian used the Eye of Insight again. With the help of the Eye of Nature, he could clearly see the internal environment of the people in the small force. After combining the space-crossing eyes and the Eye of Nature, he could also use the celestial eyes. It was simply too powerful. From now on, even if the enemy was outside of Yi Xian's field of vision, he could use the Eye of Nature and use the Eye of Soul on them. This time, there were gains and losses. Although he had gained one more technique, he was discovered by the strongest Eye of Nature. Fortunately, he was only at the 4th level of the Samsara realm. The old tree and the skeletal monarch were only at the 6th level of the samsara realm, so they should not attract the attention of the reincarnation supremacy. Unfortunately, while the formation was still being repaired, Yi Xian was nowhere to be seen. I wonder if the strongest eye of nature is still around. If he investigates and finds out that I'm going to use this teleportation formation, I won't be able to use it with him guarding it. Yi Xian thought to himself. It would take him more than a month to reach the Life and Death Canyon when he was at the 3rd level of the samsara realm. However, after breaking through to the 4th level of the samsara realm, the time needed was greatly reduced. Yi Xian estimated that if he broke through again, he would be able to reach the Life and Death Canyon within 7 days. However, he felt that it was better to wait for a while. Perhaps the strongest eye of nature had already left? He waited for half a day until he heard the system notification. Ding! The teleportation formation has been repaired. Upon hearing this, he could not help but break through the void and return to the family. This family was still desolate, and there was not a single person. After passing through the void door, Yi Xian first used the Eye of Perception and the Eye of Insight to investigate and found that there were no experts in the surroundings. He immediately flashed into the teleportation formation. Whoosh! The teleportation formation lit up and the teleportation began. A few seconds later, the teleportation was successful. When his vision cleared, Yi Xian discovered that he had appeared in a cave. This was the teleportation formation's landing point. It seems that the Eye of Nature has not caught up with me. Let's leave first. Yi Xian thought to himself and quickly left the teleportation formation's landing point. It seemed that this was a close call. However, he did not know if the owner of the Eye of Nature had reported this matter to the reincarnation supremacy. Therefore, it was better to leave first. Yi Xian immediately left his original spot and headed towards the Life and Death Canyon. He was currently at the 4th level of the samsara realm. The old tree, the skeleton, and Wei Zhentian were already at the 6th level of the samsara realm. He was confident that he could deal with an 8th level of the samsara realm expert. However, after traveling for a day, he was discovered by the Eye of Nature. No, it should be said that he discovered an Eye of Nature. Rumble! At this moment, there was a group of people in front of him who were fighting with an Eye of Nature. This group of people were between the 5th and 6th level of the samsara realm. However, they were so powerful that they could probably challenge those of a higher level. As for that Eye of Nature, it was not the one that Yi Xian saw dealing with the bone dragon. Yi Xian reckoned that it was only at the 8th level of the samsara realm. Chapter 1532. However, Yi Xian's attention was not on this, but on another team. This team wasn't locals, but rather from the 100 Fox Villas camp. Yi Xian saw that they all had 9 tails behind them. Our own people? Yi Xian took a closer look and realized that there was a white light shining between their eyebrows, indicating that they were from the same camp. Since that was the case, he could not just stand by and watch. Old Tree, Ribs, Little Tian, go! Yi Xian didn't say anything else and directly made his decision. Help! Old Tree, who was at the 6th level of the samsara realm, was extremely fast. He continuously sent his remnant flame clones over and instantly joined the battle. What? The few Fox clan geniuses were stunned when they saw this. However, when they saw the white light between Old Tree's eyebrows, they immediately reacted. They were here to help. Old Tree took the lead and immediately launched an attack on the Eye of Myriad. Shortly after, the Skeletal King attacked. The two of them worked together and directly dealt a large amount of damage to the Eye of Myriad. Humph! Another one who doesn't care about his life. The Eye of Myriad snorted coldly as its gaze landed on Old Tree. A surge of myriad energy wrapped around Old Tree, but Old Tree immediately used remnant flame to escape. Bang! A huge explosion occurred where Old Tree was, and the power was enough to severely injure an ordinary 6th level samsara realm expert. You're just a myriad manifestation realm expert. Even if your true body is here, I'm not afraid of you. Old Tree growled as he joined forces with the Skeletal King to attack again. This time, the Eye of All Things was directly crushed. The few Fox clan geniuses were extremely shocked. They could not do anything to the Eye of Myriad, but Old Tree and the Skeletal King joined forces and directly obliterated it. They were quite powerful. This is not the place to talk. Come in with me. Yi Xian had already rushed over. He quickly tore through the void and entered. Although the Eye of Myriad Forms was defeated, a second Eye of Myriad Forms was about to descend. They had to leave this place, Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to escape. The Fox Tribe youths looked at each other and decided to trust Yi Xian for the time being. Then, they entered the void door. Hua! When the void gate closed, an eye of all things appeared in the sky. It was the one that had been destroyed. Damn it! He actually ran away. That person couldn't believe it. He hurriedly began to search the surroundings, but he didn't find anything. At this moment, Yi Xian had already teleported to a hidden place. This was a void mark he had left behind on his way here. Thank you for your help, Senior. One of the youths from the Fox Tribe walked out and cupped his fists towards the old tree. Are you from 100 Fox Manor? Yi Xian suddenly asked. Yes. The young man nodded. Then do you recognize this? Yi Xian suddenly took out a token from the devouring space. This was given to him by Hu Xing'er, the Manor Lord of 100 Fox Manor, before he left. This is the 100 Fox token. The youth's eyes widened. Only the higher-ups of 100 Fox Manor could possess this 100 Fox token. Yi Xian was only at the 4th level of the Samsara realm. Furthermore, he was a human. How could he possess such a token? This was given to me by your Manor Lord. She sent me to assist in investigating the whereabouts of Samsara supremacy. Do you have any news? Yi Xian asked. This. The youths looked at each other. In the end, the leader of the Fox Tribe youth said, We just investigated the Life and Death Canyon. We didn't find Samsara supremacy. However, we heard something else. What is it? Yi Xian asked curiously. The leader of the Fox Tribe youths carefully sized up the 100 Fox token and replied, The Samsara City Lord is dead. Boom. This news was like a bolt from the blue that struck Yi Xian's head. The Samsara City Lord is dead? That can't be. The Samsara City Lord is an expert on the same level as your Manor Lord. How could he be dead? Yi Xian could not believe it. We can't guarantee it, but we are at least 80% sure. The leader of the Fox Tribe youth's eyes flickered. He was very confused when he heard this news. However, they only learned this news after controlling a person and searching his soul. That person had even seen half of the indestructible realm dragon skeleton with his own eyes. Even the dragon skeleton has been snatched away. Yi Xian gulped. He felt that this matter was serious. He hurriedly sent a voice transmission to Luo. Luo then informed Hu Xing'er, the Manor Lord of 100 Fox Manor. A few seconds later, Luo replied through voice transmission, Young Master, Mother asked you to return first. Upon hearing this, Yi Xian could roughly guess what had happened. He took out the space travel token that Zhuang Fei had given him and opened a spatial door to return to 100 Fox Manor. Yi Xian did not waste any time. He led the way and returned to Samsara Hall. At this moment, there were already many Fox Tribe experts sitting in Samsara Hall. There were more than 100 of them who were at least at the Samsara realm. The youths from the Fox Tribe almost wet their pants when they saw this scene. These hundreds of Fox Tribe experts were the leaders of the hundreds of Fox Tribe branches in 100 Fox Manor. Each branch had a different bloodline. There were Shadow Foxes, Ice Foxes, Moonlight Foxes, and so on. Even Yi Xian did not expect so many experts to gather. It seemed that the Samsara City Lord had indeed met with an accident. It was very likely that he had died. He Yu Hong greets the Manor Lord and the other leaders. The leader of the youths hurriedly said, How did you know that the Samsara City Lord had died? Hu Xing'er asked directly. It's like this. He Yu Hong began to explain. He had been ordered to investigate the Life and Death Canyon. He did not manage to find anything, so he headed to the Samsara Peak. However, along the way, the people he had charmed witnessed an earth-shattering battle with their own eyes. The two sides of the battle were the experts under the Samsara Supremacy and the Samsara City Lord. It turned out that the Samsara Supremacy had sent people to steal the Samsara City Lord's half-dragon bone. The Samsara City Lord had then sent people to steal it. At that time, the top expert under the Samsara Supremacy, Gao Yunlong, had used the Eye of All Things to control the dragon bone in battle. The experts under the Samsara City Lord were no match for the Samsara City Lord and were surrounded. Then, Gao Yunlong began to recruit people and spread the news that the Samsara City Lord had died. When the experts under the Samsara City Lord heard the news, they immediately tried to send a message back. However, they did not receive a reply from the Samsara City Lord. Although He Yu Hong and the others did not witness the battle with their own eyes, The person he had searched was at the Samsara realm 7th level. This person had seen it with his own eyes, so it could not be fake. After hearing He Yuhong's words, the gazes of the 100 tribe leaders gathered on Hu Xing'e. When I heard the news, I immediately contacted the Samsara City Lord. However, I did not receive any reply. Chapter 1533. Hu Xing'e and the Samsara City Master had been good friends for many years. Before the appearance of the Samsara supremacy, the two of them managed the land of reincarnation together. Under normal circumstances, the Samsara City Master would reply almost immediately. But now, when the 100 tribe patriarchs heard this, their hearts trembled. It seemed that something had happened to the Samsara City Master. The Samsara City Master is not as strong as the Villa Master, but he should be stronger than the Samsara supremacy. How did he suddenly die? One of the tribe patriarchs couldn't help but ask. That's right. The Samsara City Master has a 9th level Samsara realm eye of all things under him. With him patrolling the territory, he should be the first to discover the arrival of an expert. The Samsara City Master might not have died. There might be other reasons, but it's a fact that the indestructible dragon bone was stolen. If the Samsara City Master is really dead, the Samsara supremacy will probably attack us. Villa Master, what should we do? Everyone's eyes gathered on Hu Xing'e again. After thinking for a while, Hu Xing'e said, "Let's wait and see." Although she said that, she still ordered them to strengthen the defense. As for Yi Xian, he stood in the corner and listened to the 100 Fox Manners meeting. He was also planning in his heart. The Samsara City Master's death or disappearance must be related to the Samsara supremacy. The Samsara supremacy's actions were mostly related to the indestructible dragon bone. With this corpse, they could break through the shackles of the Samsara realm and break through to the indestructible realm. The land of reincarnation didn't have an indestructible realm expert. If they could break through to the indestructible realm, the Samsara supremacy wouldn't even be afraid of the Samsara fox. Soon, the meeting ended, and the 100 tribe patriarchs left. For the next period of time, they tried to avoid going out as much as possible in case something unexpected happened. Yi Xian, what did you gain this time? After everyone left, Hu Xing'e turned her head to look at Yi Xian. I only gained one thing, which is that I comprehended the eye of all things. However, I don't dare to use it in the territory for fear of being discovered. Yi Xian said slowly. The eye of all things was indeed very useful, but it was a pity that the eye of all things couldn't be used to locate a target in the void. Otherwise, his traveling speed would be unprecedented, and when stacked together, it would be comparable to the eye of space. I've caught quite a few of the enemies you asked me to capture. I'll send them to you now, Hu Xing'e said. Before Yi Xian left, he had asked Hu Xing'e to capture some enemies for no reason other than to increase his killing intent and elegy of souls. After all, the 100 Fox Manners Eye of Nature and Eye of Space had joined forces, and they had even entered other territories to capture them. The other territories here were not referring to the rotating chakra battlefield. After all, the battle imprint would only be activated on the battlefield. If it was outside, there was no difference between the enemy camp and the same camp. Yi Xian was also looking forward to it. He wondered how many enemies Hu Xing'e had captured for him. After a while, these people were lined up in several groups and escorted over. When Yi Xian saw them, he was completely shocked. These captured experts were all at least at the 6th level of the Samsara realm, and there were even a few at the 8th level of the Samsara realm. Time is of the essence. Is it enough to capture these people? Hu Xing'e looked at Yi Xian and said, It's enough, it's enough. Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. With so many people, it was enough for his killing intent value to reach the upper limit. Skeletal King, go! Yi Xian didn't waste any time and directly gave the order to the Skeletal King. When the Skeletal King heard this, its pair of ghostly eyes flickered twice, and then it charged out with its heaven-shaking sword. Ding! Host's killing intent value has increased. Ding! Host's killing intent value has increased. Ding! Host's killing intent value has increased. System notifications rang out one after another, and Yi Xian's killing intent value soared. These people were all captives and had been charmed, so they could only quietly wait for the Skeletal King's blade to descend. With each death, the Skeletal King's elegy of soul's skill would increase. After he killed hundreds of people, Yi Xian heard a system notification. Ding! Host's killing intent value has reached the upper limit. Ding! Host can exchange killing intent value for devour points. Do you want to proceed?
Yes.
Yi Xian agreed without hesitation. Ding. Killing intent value has been cleared successfully. Host has obtained 1 devour point. As the system notification rang out, Yi Xian's killing intent value increased by 1 point. Now, he had 6 devour points. With 3 more devour points, he could merge the 2 battle bloodlines and fuse them into an even more powerful immortal bloodline. After the Skeletal King killed everyone, Yi Xian couldn't help but glance at the Elegy of Soul skill and realize that it had increased to 30%. After all, the Skeletal King was at the 6th level of the Samsara realm. Although the benefits from killing enemies weren't great, it was better than nothing. In the long run, the Elegy of Soul skill could double or triple its original effect. Moreover, there was no upper limit. If this wasn't a divine skill, then what was? At this moment, Hu Xing looked at the corpses on the ground and asked slowly, "What are you going to do next?" After hearing this question, Yi Xian paused for a moment before replying. Right now, this venerable Samsara might have already obtained the undead stage dragon bone. Perhaps he has already started comprehending it, so I need to find him as soon as possible. Then you have to be careful. If reincarnation supremacy wants to go into seclusion, he will definitely send more people.
Hu Xing reminded him.
Okay. Yi Xian nodded in response. Then, Zhuang Fei, who had the Eye of Space, gave him a space travel token. Then, Yi Xian sent Yi Xian to the Northern Territory. This time, not only did he obtain news, but he also obtained a devour point, which was considered good. His next plan was to see if he could obtain the dragon bone. This way, reincarnation supremacy wouldn't be able to comprehend the corpse. Hu Xing also started to take action. While accepting the experts from the Eastern Territory, she also started to pressure reincarnation supremacy to occupy his territory. Young master, do you want to break through directly? This way, we won't have to fear anyone other than reincarnation supremacy. Old Tree suddenly suggested. Yi Xian had considered this problem before. He was at the 4th level of the Samsara realm now. As long as he devoured everything, he would be able to break through to the 6th level of the Samsara realm. Old Tree and Skeletal King would be able to reach the 8th level of the Samsara realm at the very least. This way, they would be able to do whatever they wanted in the Samsara battlefield or even the entire land of reincarnation. Alright, but after breaking through, the number of times you guys appear will decrease. Yi Xian said to Old Tree and Skeletal King. Understood. Old Tree nodded. In that case, let's do it. Chapter 1534. Ding. Host has made a breakthrough. Current level of Samsara realm. Ding. Host has made a breakthrough. Current level of Samsara realm. Ding. Spirit of Ashes has made a breakthrough. Current level of Samsara realm. Ding. Spirit of Ashes has made a breakthrough. Current level of Samsara realm. Ding. Wei Zhentian has made a breakthrough. Current level of Samsara realm. Ding. Wei Zhentian has made a breakthrough. Current level of Samsara realm. Ding. Skeletal King has made a breakthrough. Current level of Samsara realm. Ding. Skeletal King has made a breakthrough. Current level of Samsara realm. After 8 consecutive system notifications, Yi Xian's cultivation level soared to 6th Samsara realm. Now, he was not even afraid of 9th Samsara realm experts. As long as he could find reincarnation supremacy, he would release the Old Tree and Skeletal King before killing them with his ultimate move. However, before that, the Old Tree and Skeletal King would not be able to fight as their cultivation levels were too high. The moment they appeared, they would be discovered by the eye of nature. As for Wei Zhentian, he was only a weapon and did not have any aura. Therefore he could come out to fight. Although the Life and Death Canyon has been investigated, it is the closest place to the battle. Perhaps the other party sent the dragon bone there. When he thought of this, Yi Xian immediately took action. He broke through the void and returned to the place where he had met He Yu Hong and the others before rushing to the Life and Death Canyon. With his speed, he would arrive at the Life and Death Canyon in less than a day. However, his journey was not that smooth. Yi Xian, who was hurrying along, suddenly stopped in his tracks. He felt a strange energy above his head. He raised his head and saw that there was an eye of all things that was staring at him. Ha ha ha, it's you again. You're courting death. A hearty laugh came from the eye of nature. Yi Xian was delighted when he heard it. It turned out that the Eye of Nature that had attacked He Yu Hong and the others was only at 8th Samsara realm. Before Yi Xian could speak, he used the force of nature to attack Yi Xian. A mere 8th level Samsara stage practitioner dares to find trouble with me? Without another word, Yi Xian raised his hand and slashed. Swish! The flaming sword Qi tore through the air and struck the Eye of all manifestations. After being struck, the Eye of all manifestations trembled violently for a moment before collapsing. Instant kill. Not to mention the eyes of myriad forms, even if the person himself came, he would not be able to block this move. Previously, Yi Xian had been passive when facing the Eye of myriad forms. Now, he had to take the initiative to attack. Now that I have the heaven-traversing 10,000 elephants, I might be able to track this person down. Yi Xian's eyes lit up. He immediately used his Eye of Revelation to observe and discovered that there were some changes in the surrounding heaven and earth Yuan Qi. North. After some observation, Yi Xian found some clues. This 10,000 mammoths traversing 10,000 mammoths was actually using the 10,000 mammoths force to gather the surrounding heaven and earth essence Qi to form the 10,000 mammoths Eye. The Eye of myriad forms was similar to the person himself. Most people would not be able to discover it, but Yi Xian had the Eye of Revelation and immediately detected it. Before Yi Xian could leave, the Eye of myriad forms appeared again. You bastard Eye! Yi Xian did not wait for him to finish speaking. He immediately attacked and destroyed the Eye of myriad forms. Then, he ran a few more steps and another Eye of myriad forms appeared. However, before it could open its mouth, it was destroyed by Yi Xian. After using the Eye of myriad forms several times, Yi Xian could confirm the other party's location. Let me see where you are. Yi Xian's eyes flickered as he immediately used the technique he had just learned. Heaven traversing 10,000 elephants. An Eye of myriad forms suddenly condensed in a place more than an hour away from him. Within the Eye of myriad forms was a mountain range. Yi Xian used the Eye of myriad forms to look and discovered an aura coming from the bottom of the mountain range. Found you. Yi Xian's eyes lit up as he immediately attacked. Bang! 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 The Eye of myriad forms began to bombard the mountain range. When the person in the mountain range heard the commotion, he no longer condensed the Eye of myriad forms to chase after Yi Xian. Instead, he went out to take a look. The next moment, he was shocked. Eye of myriad forms? He knew all the people on his side who possessed the heaven-traversing 10,000 elephants. However, the Eye of myriad forms in front of him was extremely unfamiliar. It was obviously an enemy. Before he could speak, Yi Xian attacked directly. Humph, you're courting death. The man snorted coldly and directly destroyed Yi Xian's Eye of myriad forms. However, Yi Xian did not condense the Eye of myriad forms again because he had already achieved his goal. Death warrant. He had already issued a death warrant to this man. At the same time, Yi Xian was also rushing over. This man is at the 8th level of the Samsara realm. Perhaps he knows where reincarnation supremacy is, Yi Xian thought to himself. He was prepared to kill this man, seize his Eye of myriad forms, and then search his soul. An 8th level Samsara realm martial artist who possessed the Eye of myriad forms was considered a high-level martial artist. Therefore, Yi Xian felt that he had a high chance of succeeding. At this moment, the man still did not know that the Eye of myriad forms belonged to Yi Xian. He was still investigating his surroundings, but it seemed like Yi Xian was the only one nearby. Could it be this kid? The man's heart trembled. Yi Xian was the only one in the surroundings. Moreover, Yi Xian was currently running towards him. It was easy for him to be suspected. This kid can actually destroy my Eye of myriad forms multiple times. He's quite capable. The man pondered for a moment before heading towards Yi Xian. The two of them faced each other and Yi Xian issued a death warrant to his opponent. In less than half an hour, the two of them met. Kid, where did you come from? The man could not help but ask when he saw how calm Yi Xian was. Cut the crap. Let's fight. Yi Xian did not waste any more time and immediately attacked. Swish. A flaming sword Qi pierced through the air. If this attack landed on the man, he would definitely be severely injured. However, the man's strength was not to be underestimated. He also possessed the Eye of myriad forms. Even if he could not dodge the sword Qi, he could still defeat it. Unfortunately, Yi Xian was currently using a strategy to end the battle quickly. After the man dodged his sky-incinerating sword technique, the old tree and the skeleton king suddenly appeared on his left and right. What? The man's eyes widened. He did not notice how the old tree and the skeleton king appeared. Before he could react, the old tree had already flashed behind him. The old tree was already at the 8th level of the Samsara realm and possessed extremely powerful offensive strength. His attack was probably stronger than Yi Xian's. Bang! The man's back was severely injured and he was sent flying. However, he quickly stabilized himself. However, the skeleton king was already charging towards him. Chapter 1535. Grip of the Underworld. A strange force wrapped around the man's body and forced him to rapidly approach the skeletal king. Oh no! The man's heart trembled as he hurriedly used the All Creation's force to attack the skeletal king. Furthermore, the attack penetrated the skeletal king's tough armor and exploded in his body. Bang! A muffled sound was heard from the skeletal king's body. However, this kind of attack was child's play to him. As long as his body was not injured more than 4/5, the system would not judge him as dead. With the immortal phoenix bloodline, he could immediately recover from his injuries. The man who was pulled toward the skeletal king was attacked by Yi Xian, the old tree, and the skeletal king at the same time. He instantly died. Of course, Yi Xian deliberately kept the man's eyes of 10,000 forms intact. An 8th level Samsara realm expert was instantly killed by the three of them. After the man died, Yi Xian quickly put away the eyes of 10,000 forms and the interspatial ring. Then, he hid the old tree and the other two in the planting space before he flew away. The old tree and the skeletal king's auras were 8th level Samsara realm experts. Their sudden appearance would probably attract attention. Indeed, not long after Yi Xian left, an eye of 10,000 forms appeared in the sky. This time, Yi Xian had seen it before. It was Gao Yunlong, one of the subordinates of Samsara realm supremacy. He was also the one who controlled half of the skeletal dragon and killed the Samsara city governor's team. Was it an illusion? Gao Yunlong used the sky-traversing 10,000 forms to survey the area but did not discover anything. Then he left. At this moment, Yi Xian had already left the area and was hiding. Ding! The host has devoured an eye of 10,000 forms. The All Creation's force has increased. Ding! The host has devoured an eye of 10,000 forms. The All Creation's force has increased. After devouring 2 eyes of 10,000 forms, Yi Xian felt that his strength had increased again. Furthermore, the distance of the sky traversing 10,000 forms had increased as well. He had also kept the corpse of the man just now. It just so happened that he could use his soul eye to search through this person's memories. However, as a 6th-level Samsara realm expert, it would probably take a lot of time to search the corpse of an 8th-level Samsara realm expert. However, there was no other choice. After all, the sky-traversing token that Zhuang Fei had given him was sky-traversing token. This time, he spent a full 2 days searching through his memories. 2 days later, although Yi Xian didn't find the content he was looking for, which was the location of Venerable Samsara, he discovered something else. The #1 expert under reincarnation supremacy, Gao Yunlong, usually lingers around the reincarnation summit. Unless something strange happens, he usually won't leave. However, the reincarnation summit was quite a distance away from him. It would take him about 10 days to get there. Moreover, there was no teleportation array in between. It would not be easy to get there. Villa Master gave me a lot of cultivation resources and I used them to break through to the 6th level of the Samsara realm. In addition to the spoils from 2 days ago, I am about to break through. Why don't I wait until I break through to the 7th level of the Samsara realm? Yi Xian was planning. The old tree and the skeletal king were about to break through as well. Once they broke through to the 9th level of the Samsara realm supremacy would not be able to cause any trouble even if he broke through to the imperishable stage. Yi Xian planned carefully and came up with a leveling up route. This route would lead him to the Samsara realm supremacy, and there were many forces he could use to break through. Then he set off. Since he could communicate with Luo Luo through voice transmission, he reported his progress to Hu Xing. At the same time, he also received some news. The Samsara city governor had really died. This news was brought by the eyes of 10,000 forms expert under the Samsara city governor. It was said that the Samsara city governor was poisoned by an unknown poison and died after half a day of closed-door cultivation. When Hu Xing heard this news, she couldn't help but shudder. What kind of poison could kill the Samsara city governor, who was at the peak of the 9th level of the Samsara realm? The Samsara city governor was half a step into the imperishable stage, and the mysterious life chi in his body was strong. Ordinary poisons wouldn't be able to kill him. However, the Samsara city governor's body had been snatched away, and the eyes of Samsara had probably fallen into the hands of Samsara realm supremacy. Naturally, no one knew the cause of death. Although I only met the Samsara city governor a few times, he had a good relationship with the Villa Master and even helped Luo Luo reincarnate. I will avenge him. Yi Xian made up his mind and left immediately. This time, he knew where Samsara realm supremacy was. However, before he fought with Samsara realm supremacy, he had to get rid of the strongest eyes of 10,000 forms expert, Gao Yunlong. It was easy to lure Gao Yunlong out. All he had to do was expose his whereabouts and let Gao Yunlong find him. When the time came, Yi Xian could start a massacre. After making up his mind, Yi Xian quickly headed to a nearby force. This time, he didn't hide and called out the old tree and the skeletal king. Kill! This force was a sect, and there were many disciples in the sect. When they saw the red light shining between the eyebrows of Yi Xian and the old tree, they immediately rushed forward in groups. It's an enemy. Kill! That old man is at the 8th level of the Samsara realm. Hurry up and inform the sect leader. 4 elders, join forces with me. This sect had migrated over in recent years. Although there weren't many disciples, there were 8th level Samsara realm experts in the sect. Unfortunately, Yi Xian wasn't afraid of 9th level Samsara realm experts. What was a mere 8th level Samsara realm expert to him? Although this was what Yi Xian said, he still wanted to end the battle quickly. After all, the eyes of myriad forms might descend and disturb him. If this was any other place, Yi Xian wouldn't do something like exterminating a sect. However, this was the rotating wheel battlefield. Moreover, the people in this sect seemed to have gone crazy when they saw them and rushed to their deaths. Coincidentally, Yi Xian liked to fight in groups. Therefore, he immediately started a killing feast. Given his cultivation level, even 8th level Samsara realm experts wouldn't be able to withstand his attacks easily. As for those below the 8th level of the Samsara realm, they would only be killed in an instant. Ding! Host's killing intent has increased. Ding! Host's killing intent has increased. Ding! Host's killing intent has increased. System notifications rang out one after another. At the same time, the killing feast's killing intent was increasing continuously. 10%, 20%, 30%, 100%. In less than 10 seconds, all the experts at the 5th level of the Samsara realm and above in this sect were dead. Not a single one was left. Yi Xian had obtained the inheritance of an entire sect and had gained a lot. Unfortunately, he was still a little short of breaking through to the 7th level of the Samsara realm. Chapter 1536. Let's go! After annihilating this sect, Yi Xian quickly hid Elder Shu and the Skeleton King in the planting space, then split up with Wei Zhentian and hurried on their way. Not long after they left, an eye of all things condensed in the sky. What's going on? An illusory figure appeared in the eye of nature. It was Gao Yunlong whom Yi Xian had seen before. He could not help but feel astonished when he saw the bloodbath in the sect. It's a manager. When the disciples of the various sects saw this, it was as if they had seen their savior. They immediately recounted what had just happened. He destroyed a sect in 10 seconds? Gao Yunlong was in disbelief. If it was him, he would be able to destroy the sect in 10 seconds. However, the disciples were talking about someone from the enemy camp. How was it possible that an expert had infiltrated their territory without being discovered by him and the other managers? He left not long ago. Gao Yunlong narrowed his eyes before the illusory figure and the eye of nature disappeared from the world. Yi Xian was heading north at that moment. Gao Yunlong caught up with him shortly after he left. This aura. It's Gao Yunlong. Yi Xian immediately reacted and stopped in his tracks. Back then, 3 managers had appeared in the abyss of death. They were from 3 different camps and had joined forces to kill the skeletal dragon, who was at the peak of the 9th level of the Samsara realm. Gao Yunlong was one of them. Yi Xian had witnessed Gao Yunlong's attack before. However, Gao Yunlong was only at the 1st level of the Samsara realm at that time. Now that he was at the 6th level of the Samsara realm, the old tree, the skeletal king, and Wei Zhentian were at the 8th level of the Samsara realm, they were more than enough to deal with Gao Yunlong. Of course, they were talking about Gao Yunlong's actual body. Now, it was only Gao Yunlong's eye of 10,000 forms that came, so there was nothing to fear. Who are you? Gao Yunlong's illusory figure formed and his gaze landed on Yi Xian. Yi Xian had only returned when the skeletal dragon was killed and Gao Yunlong and Reincarnation Venerable's Eye of Reincarnation were defeated. Therefore, Gao Yunlong did not recognize Yi Xian. Who are you? Yi Xian pretended not to know him and asked. You don't even know me, yet you dare to enter my territory? You're courting death. Without another word, Gao Yunlong launched an attack on Yi Xian. Bang! A violent explosion occurred where Yi Xian was, but before it happened, he had already left his original spot and counterattacked. Another Eye of Myriad Forms appeared in the sky and stared at Gao Yunlong's Eye of Myriad Forms. Bang! Gao Yunlong was a little surprised that his Eye of Myriad was attacked. Yi Xian actually had the Eye of All Things. However, due to the short distance between them, he did not know that Yi Xian also had the ability to travel through space. You have some ability. Gao Yunlong didn't think much of it and continued to attack. He directly destroyed Yi Xian's Eye of Myriad Forms with a single strike. The #1 subordinate of reincarnation supremacy was indeed extraordinary. Just the Eye of All Things alone had the ability to kill an 8th level Samsara stage expert. However, Yi Xian wasn't that easy to deal with. Killing Intent Explosion. Heaven Incinerating Sword Technique. Yi Xian wielded the Scarlet Flame Sword and personally attacked. At the same time, Wei Zhentian also attacked. No matter how powerful Gao Yunlong was, he wouldn't be able to kill Wei Zhentian, who possessed the immortal divine phoenix bloodline. In the beginning, Gao Yunlong had underestimated Yi Xian's strength. However, as time passed, he couldn't help but feel a little incredulous when he realized that he couldn't do anything to Yi Xian. Recently, he had obtained many good items and had cultivated to the peak of the 9th level Samsara stage. Even if he were to travel through space and descend, he would be able to kill an 8th level Samsara stage expert. However, now, he couldn't even deal with Yi Xian, who was at the 6th level Samsara stage. I remember now. You should be the #1 supervisor of the northern camp. However, you don't seem to be very strong. Yi Xian couldn't help but mock Lin Huang. Although only 3 seconds had passed since the start of the battle, all of his attacks had been defeated by Gao Yunlong. Gao Yunlong's attacks couldn't hurt him either. Therefore, they were evenly matched. If you said that in front of me, you would already be a corpse. Gao Yunlong's cold voice entered Yi Xian's ears. The latter couldn't help but mock. But your original body isn't here, right? If you have the ability, come here personally. As you wish. Yi Xian's body trembled slightly when he heard this. Gao Yunlong could actually say such a thing. What was going on? Could it be that Gao Yunlong was nearby? Come, so what if my original body is here? I'll kill you as soon as you appear. Yi Xian's eyes couldn't help but emit 2 rays of light. His goal was to kill Gao Yunlong and break through to the 7th level Samsara stage. Then, he would perform a soul search to find reincarnation supremacy and kill him. This way, the land of reincarnation would be Hu Xing-er's world. However, Yi Xian was shocked in the next moment. All of a sudden, another eye appeared beside Gao Yunlong's Eye of Myriad Forms. This time, it wasn't the Eye of Nature. It was the Eye of Space that Yi Xian had seen before. How was this possible? Before Yi Xian could react, a crack suddenly appeared in the spatial eye. Soon after, a human youth walked out. There was actually an expert who possessed the Eye of Space under Reincarnation Supremacy's command. This person was at the 9th level Samsara stage. Qiu Feng, catch him. I want him alive. Gao Yunlong said to this person. Yi Xian looked at this young man called Qiu Feng in disbelief. He quickly sent a voice transmission to Hu Xing-er and reported this to Reincarnation Fox. The information that Hu Xing-er gave him didn't mention that Reincarnation Supremacy had an expert who possessed the Eye of Space. Although Zhuang Fei also possessed the Eye of Space, he had the mutated bloodline of the Fox of Space. Ordinary people could only obtain the Eye of Space from a heaven-reaching beast that possessed the Eye of Space. However, when Yi Xian saw this person, a strange smile appeared on his face. Now that he had the Eye of Nature and the Eye of Death, if he devoured this Eye of Space, he would have 3 types of Eye of Space in his eye catalog. When that time came, he would be rewarded. Moreover, this Eye of Space had its own merits compared to the Eye of the Void. If Yi Xian could obtain it, it would be much more convenient. However, for now, he had to deal with Qiu Feng, who possessed the Eye of Space first. Gao Yunlong was also very confident. After leaving this sentence, he directly disappeared. Now, only Yi Xian and Qiu Feng were left. Qiu Feng didn't know what Yi Xian had done, but Gao Yunlong had ordered him to capture Yi Xian alive. This was an order that he had to fulfill. He didn't waste any time and immediately flew towards Yi Xian. He was prepared to capture Yi Xian and hand him over to Gao Yunlong. Yi Xian had originally wanted to find Gao Yunlong's whereabouts. Now, as long as he killed Qiu Feng, he would probably be able to find him. Chapter 1537. Old Tree, Spare Ribs, There's a Fight. Yi Xian immediately summoned Old Tree and Skeleton King without hesitation. In an instant, it became 4 against 1. After sensing the other two auras, Qiu Feng's body suddenly trembled. Residual flame. Old Tree took the lead, flashed behind Qiu Feng, and then punched him hard. Whoosh! Old Tree's punch did not hit Qiu Feng. To be precise, it did not hit anything. Through the vision sharing, Yi Xian saw Old Tree's punch hit a black hole in space. The Eye of Space has the ability to control space. Not only can it tear space to fight, but it can also be used for defense. While Old Tree was still in shock, the space crack suddenly closed. Whoosh! The space crack closed, leaving half of Old Tree's hand in the space crack. The space crack was almost the strongest attack. Ascension Realm powerhouses could tear space even without the Eye of Space, so it was very powerful. It seemed that Qiu Feng would not be so easy to deal with. However, Yi Xian overestimated Qiu Feng. With Qiu Feng's realm, he could only use the ability to tear space a few times. Old Tree's attack was not weak. If Qiu Feng did not use his trump card, he would at least be seriously injured. Then, he would fall into a passive state in the following battle and be killed. It had been 2 days since the last battle with the Eye of Nature, so the Skeleton King's grip of hell could be used. The moment Old Tree's attack failed, he directly stretched out his hand, grabbed Qiu Feng, and then pulled him over. After feeling this irresistible force, Qiu Feng's eyes flickered, and he directly broke open a space door in front of him. And the other end of this space door appeared behind the Skeleton King. Flash punch. Qiu Feng's right hand fiercely blasted out and hit the Skeleton King's back across space. In an instant, the Skeleton King's hard rock armor shattered. This punch was infused with the ability of the Eye of Space. Although it did not tear through space, its power was not small. It directly penetrated the Skeleton Monarch's body. Unfortunately, this damage could not reach 4/5, which meant that the Skeleton King would not die. At that moment, the immortal Phoenix bloodline inside him took effect and healed his wounds. Qiu Feng could only use spatial tear a few times. The first time was to cross space, the second time was to block the Old Tree's attack, and the third time was to attack the Skeleton King. Right now, he could only use it twice. Furthermore, even if he managed to grab hold of Yi Xian after that, he would probably only be able to travel on foot. After all, using the spatial eye required eye power. The power of his eyes had become his fatal flaw. Before he could attack again, Yi Xian and Old Tree had already launched their attacks. He had no choice but to use the Eye of Space again. However, this time he did not tear through space. Instead, he used another method to defend himself. Space distortion. Yi Xian's burning sky sword art tore through the air. Just as it was about to hit Qiu Feng, it was suddenly repelled by a strange energy. The angle of the burning sky sword art deviated by 30 degrees. Old Tree was the same. When he threw a fire fist, his arm was repelled and hit his left shoulder instead. What the hell? The Eye of Space is really powerful. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Qiu Feng had used the Eye of Space to distort the space around him. Normal attacks could not break through it. Earlier, he had already used the Death Hunt command to mark Qiu Feng. Because Gao Yunlong did not come in person, he could not mark him. However, he now saw that the Eye of Assassination could not be used. This meant that the Eye of Assassination could not pass through this layer of distorted space and reach Qiu Feng's back. Even Old Tree's residual flames were the same. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly felt the space around him begin to distort. This was because Qiu Feng had used the Eye of Space on him and trapped Yi Xian. Haha, you want to trap me first? Yi Xian immediately understood. It just so happened that Qiu Feng used the Eye of Space again and broke through space to arrive in front of Yi Xian. He still had the ability to break through space, so he could bring Yi Xian back. Yi Xian originally wanted to put away the old tree and the Skeleton King, but he changed his mind. Gao Yunlong wanted to capture him, right? Now that Qiu Feng could capture him, wouldn't that be exactly what he wanted?
Let's go.
Qiu Feng still did not understand Yi Xian's plan. He directly grabbed Yi Xian's throat with one hand, then quickly broke open a space door and entered. At the same time, the old tree, the Skeleton King, and Megatron had been put into Yi Xian's planting space. Although the Eye of Assassination and residual flames could not be used, it did not affect the absorption of people. In addition, the special positioning of space could be used. If Yi Xian had wanted to leave earlier, he could have directly broken through space and teleported to the old tree and the Skeleton King's side, or he could have just left. At this moment, Yi Xian had already been forcefully brought through the spatial door by Qiu Feng. At this moment, he arrived at a cave. As soon as he passed through the space door, Yi Xian felt a powerful aura. 9th level Samsara Realm. Moreover, it was at the peak of the 9th level Samsara Realm.
Gao Yunlong, I finally found you.
Yi Xian's eyes flickered as he looked at the figure in front of him and immediately used the death warrant. After Qiu Feng caught him, he really did bring him to Gao Yunlong and handed him over to Gao Yunlong. Before Gao Yunlong and Qiu Feng could react, Yi Xian summoned the old tree and the Skeleton King. With a wave of his hand, 10 corpses appeared.
Death intent.
Death gaze. In the next moment, Qiu Feng's body began to rapidly decay. At the same time, the 10 corpses on the ground suddenly flipped over. These 10 corpses were at least at the 7th level Samsara Realm, and there were even a few 8th level Samsara Realm corpses. Among them, there were enemies that Yi Xian had killed and enemies that Hu Xing'er had sent people to capture. These 10 corpses were affected by the death intent and became battle corpses. The death intent skill appeared after Yi Xian devoured the Eye of Death. The Skeleton King could resurrect corpses that were lower in cultivation than him without any consumption. If he wanted to resurrect corpses of the same cultivation level, he would have to consume soul water. The Death Gaze was Qi Xuanyue's ultimate move. Just this move alone consumed a large amount of soul water, causing the amplification of the Elegy of Souls to decrease by 5%. In addition to the resurrection of the death intent, the amplification of the Elegy of Souls was reduced to 20%. However, this move caught Qiu Feng off guard. Before Qiu Feng could react, his head was turned into ashes, and he died tragically in an instant. Just like that, there was another 9th level Samsara Realm corpse. Ding! Host's killing intent has increased. A system notification sounded, indicating that Qiu Feng had really died. Chapter 1538. Fortunately, Yi Xian had managed to protect his Eye of Space. Yi Xian immediately kept the Eye of Space and the Qian Kuan ring. Ding! Host has made a breakthrough. Host is currently at the 7th level of the Samsara Realm. Ding! Spirit of Ashes has made a breakthrough. Host is currently at the 9th level of the Samsara Realm. Ding! Wei Zhentian has made a breakthrough. Host is currently at the 9th level of the Samsara Realm. Ding! Skeletal King has made a breakthrough. Host is currently at the 9th level of the Samsara Realm. This was only the notification for the upgrade. It was not over yet. Ding! Host has devoured an Eye of Space. Ding! Host has devoured an Eye of Space. Ding! Eye of Space has been copied into the Eye catalog. There are currently 3 types: Eye of Nature, Eye of Death, and Eye of Space. Ding! System rewards Host Celestial Eyes to evolve once. Indeed, the reward for the Eye catalog was to evolve the Celestial Eyes. This was something that Yi Xian had already guessed. After devouring a pair of Eye of Space, he had also mastered some spatial techniques. For example, he could distort space and tear space. Distort space was similar to Qiu Feng. It could be used for defense or to trap people. As for tear space, the distance was much smaller than the void door. However, it was very practical in battle. Previously, Yi Xian had used the void positioning system to set traps for his enemies before using the Eye of the Void to launch a sneak attack. Now that he had the Eye of Space, he no longer needed to do so. As long as he was nearby, he could tear space and attack his enemies from behind. Of course, tearing space consumed a lot of eye power. Yi Xian estimated that he could only use it 2 or 3 times. However, this was enough. At this moment, Chou Feng was already dead. The appearance of Yi Xian and the other two gave Gao Yunlong a fright. Chou Feng was killed instantly? Gao Yunlong's eyes widened in disbelief. Previously, he had asked Chou Feng to capture Yi Xian and send him to him. Chou Feng had done that. However, it was obvious that Yi Xian was playing hard to get. Not only had he successfully found him, but he had also killed Chou Feng instantly. Who are you? Gao Yunlong asked subconsciously. The one who will kill you. Just like before, Yi Xian had no intention of wasting words with Gao Yunlong. He immediately gave the order to attack. The old tree, the skeletal monarch, Wei Zhentian, and the 11 corpses immediately launched their attacks. The reason why Yi Xian had not allowed the Skeleton King to use its death gaze on Gao Yunlong was because Gao Yunlong had most likely reached the peak 9th level of the Samsara realm. On the other hand, Chou Feng was only at the initial 9th level of the Samsara realm and would be easier to kill. The success rate of insta-killing Chou Feng was much higher than the success rate of insta-killing Gao Yunlong. Furthermore, after killing Chou Feng, Yi Xian and the rest had all made breakthroughs. They were no longer afraid of Gao Yunlong's true body. The Skeleton King, who had already broken through to the 9th level of the Samsara realm, and the old tree flew towards Gao Yunlong from both sides. In addition, Chou Feng's headless corpse and the other 10 corpses also attacked directly. You think you can kill me? Gao Yunlong roared angrily. Vital energy surged out from his body and formed a layer of invisible defense around his body. The defensive strength of this layer of defense was not inferior to Chou Feng's spatial distortion defense. After all, Gao Yunlong was at the peak 9th level of the Samsara realm and possessed the Eye of Nature. His strength was not to be underestimated. Unfortunately, the old tree and the Skeleton King had already broken through to the 9th level of the Samsara realm. Bang! A dull sound was heard. Gao Yunlong's defense was broken through by the Skeleton King. Immediately after, the old tree's remaining flames attacked. Boom! The old tree punched Gao Yunlong's back, causing the latter's body to tilt forward. At this moment, the Skeleton King could have used its death gaze directly. However, using it once consumed too much soul water. Each time it was used, it would reduce the amplification by 5%. Therefore, Yi Xian did not allow him to use it. If he had to use his trump card to deal with Gao Yunlong, how would he deal with reincarnation supremacy? He had to keep his trump card. The old tree and the Skeleton King had finished their attacks. Next, it was Chou Feng's turn to attack the 11 battle corpses. Get lost, all of you! At this moment, Gao Yunlong's eyes flashed fiercely. His eyes were suddenly filled with blood vessels. Immediately after, an extremely powerful all-creations force emerged from his body. Boom! This all-creations force rapidly spread and blasted the old tree and the Skeleton King. Chou Feng and the other battle corpses were not spared. Bang! 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 Muffled sounds rang out one after another. Yi Xian hurriedly used spatial distortion to block the impact. As for the battle corpses that he had resurrected the Skeleton King, all of them, except for Chou Feng, exploded. What a powerful attack! Even Yi Xian, who possessed the Eye of Revelation, could not see through this move. It seemed like it was not a divine ability, but a method of using the Eye of Myriad. Yi Xian's heart was bleeding. Just in case, he had resurrected many battle corpses with high cultivation realms. The amplification from the Elegy of Souls had dropped from 30% to 20%. It was a full 10% amplification. Now, more than half of it had been destroyed by Gao Yunlong's attack. At this moment, Gao Yunlong's face was gloomy. He knew that it would be difficult for him to defeat Yi Xian and the others. After sending the old tree and the Skeleton King flying, he directly soared into the sky and prepared to break through and leave this place by force. This time, Yi Xian did not intend to show mercy. Ribs, come on! Yi Xian suddenly gave the Skeleton King an order. Then the Skeleton King directly waved the sky-shaking sword and slashed at Yi Xian with a dark gray sword chi. Sky-shattering flowing rock slash. This move was the combined skill of the Skeleton King and Wei Zhentian. Although it was not very powerful, its effect was extremely terrifying. Facing this move, Yi Xian's eyes suddenly flickered. Then, he directly consumed a large amount of eye power to tear a large spatial crack. Whoosh! The sky-shattering flowing rock slash sank into the spatial crack and finally came out from behind Gao Yunlong. Bam! Gao Yunlong's back was hit.
In the blink of an eye, it was as if he had a thick turtle shell on his back.
He was instantly petrified.
This how? Gao Yunlong's eyes widened.
He did not pay much attention to Yi Xian's spatial distortion earlier. But now he saw that Yi Xian also had the eye of space. How was this possible?
However, he did not have time to think. No, to be precise, he no longer had the ability to think.
This was because the degree of petrification had climbed to his brain. Even though he had a large amount of mysterious life qi in his body, he could not dispel this petrification ability. If the Skeleton King was only at the 8th level of the Samsara realm, he might have a chance of survival. However, the Skeleton King was at the 9th level of the Samsara realm. It was impossible for him to survive.
Ding.
Host's killing intent has increased. Chapter 1539.
Ding.
Host has devoured an eye of all things. Strength of all things has increased.
Ding.
Host has devoured an eye of all things. Strength of all things has increased. Gao Yunlong had possessed the eye of all things for thousands of years.
After thousands of years, he had a deep understanding of the eye of all things. Therefore it was very powerful.
After Yi Xian devoured the eye of all things, he felt that his strength of all things had increased significantly. Even his distance had increased. He could now travel a distance of 3 days. This was already very incredible for a 7th-level Samsara realm practitioner like him. This was because the distance of the young man he had killed back then paled in comparison to his. However, there was a more important matter at hand. Gao Yunlong's eye of all things is hovering near the reincarnation peak. Could this be? Yi Xian's eyes suddenly flashed. He immediately took out the base of the life and death plate from the devouring space.
Buzz!
The base of the life and death plate shook violently the moment it appeared. This meant that reincarnation supremacy was nearby.
Found him.
I've finally found you. Reincarnation supremacy. Yi Xian's eyes widened. He quickly left the cave. When he left, he realized that he was at the foot of a mountain. Indeed, this was the reincarnation peak. The reincarnation peak was very high. Even with Yi Xian's senses, he could not sense the peak. However, the base of the life and death plate seemed to want to fly up. If Yi Xian had not grabbed it, it would have flown up into the sky. Reincarnation supremacy was at the reincarnation peak.
Let's go.
Yi Xian did not hesitate. He immediately soared into the sky and flew towards the reincarnation peak. At the same time, an old man at the reincarnation peak suddenly opened his eyes. This person was reincarnation supremacy. At this moment, he suddenly felt a strange sense of déjà vu in his heart. Just as he was feeling surprised, a person stepped into the range of his spiritual consciousness. 7th level Samsara realm.
Who is it?
Reincarnation supremacy narrowed his eyes. He had clearly instructed Gao Yunlong not to let anyone near the reincarnation peak. However, why would a 7th-level Samsara realm kid appear here? Fortunately, he had already exited seclusion. Otherwise, he would have directly attacked and obliterated that person. Soon, a figure appeared in front of him. When he saw the item in the figure's hand, he immediately came to a realization.
Base.
The reincarnation supremacy finally reacted. This young man had found him by relying on the base of the life and death plate. But why would someone do that? He remembered that he had abandoned the base of the life and death plate in the Scarlet Flame Mountain range. His gaze landed on the young man, and he realized that he had seen this young man before, just outside the Scarlet Flame Mountain range. At that time, he had been fighting with the Samsara city leader and the reincarnation fox for the 2 wills of Samsara. In the end, he had been defeated by the Samsara city leader and the reincarnation fox. The brat in front of him had also been present at that time. However, he had only been at the longevity stage back then. Now, he had reached the 7th level of the Samsara stage. How is that possible?
Reincarnation Sage's eyes widened as he stared at the young man before him.
In just a few short months, he had broken through from the longevity stage to the 7th level of the Samsara stage. Even a reincarnated being would not be able to do that. The young man in front of him was Yi Xian, who had found him with the base of the life and death plate. After seeing the reincarnation supremacy, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. However, his eyes were not that confident because the aura of the reincarnation supremacy in front of him was much stronger than Gao Yunlong's. The reincarnation supremacy had probably broken through the shackles of the reincarnation stage and reached the imperishable stage.
However, so what? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and asked, "Are you the reincarnation supremacy?" Although he was certain, he could not help but ask, "Who are you?" The reincarnation supremacy asked with a frown. At this moment, he did not take Yi Xian seriously at all. After all, Yi Xian was only at the 7th level of the samsara stage. Even a peak 9th level samsara stage martial artist was like an ant in front of him, let alone a 7th level samsara stage martial artist. However, what he did not know was that Yi Xian had just killed his #1 general at the foot of the mountain. The reincarnation supremacy found it strange that Yi Xian had the base of the life and death plate and was able to find him. "Who I am is not important." Yi Xian shook his head and said, "I did not expect you to successfully break through to the imperishable stage. It seems like it was because of the half of the imperishable stage dragon bone." "You actually know?" The reincarnation supremacy was shocked when he heard this. How did Yi Xian know that he had obtained the imperishable stage dragon bone? Could he be a survivor of the 100 Fox Manor or Reincarnation City? However, now that he had broken through, there was no one in the land of reincarnation who could threaten him, not even the strongest reincarnation fox. "That's right. I extracted a drop of imperishable blood essence from the half of the imperishable stage dragon bone. After I successfully refined it, I broke through to the imperishable stage." The reincarnation supremacy did not hide anything and directly told the truth. He had relied on this drop of imperishable blood essence to successfully break through to the imperishable stage. An imperishable stage expert had an indestructible body. Although their physique was extremely strong, it was extremely difficult to repair. However, an imperishable stage expert could condense the imperishable blood essence. Even if their entire body was reduced to nothingness, they could still rely on this drop of imperishable blood essence to revive. This was the strength of an imperishable stage expert. However, this drop of imperishable blood essence was extremely difficult to condense. Not everyone could condense it. He really did reach the imperishable stage. After hearing the reincarnation supremacy's words, Yi Xian could not help but tremble. The gap between the samsara stage and the imperishable stage was huge. It was definitely not easy to kill an imperishable stage expert. Moreover, the reincarnation supremacy actually had a drop of imperishable blood essence. This meant that even if the reincarnation supremacy died, he could still revive on his own. Yi Xian immediately scanned with the eye of revelation, but he could not see through the reincarnation supremacy. It seemed like he had to use his trump card this time. "Kid, how did you know you could find me with this?" At this time, the reincarnation supremacy could not help but ask. "That day when you appeared outside the Scarlet Flame Mountain Range and fought with the Reincarnation City Governor and the Reincarnation Fox for the Reincarnation Will, you were defeated by the two of them. After you left, the base of the Life and Death Plate was unearthed and I obtained it. Then when you appeared in the Dark Moon Tomb Chamber again, you caused the base of the Life and Death Plate to tremble. Therefore, I guess that this thing should be related to you. I guess you should be the original body of the Life and Death Plate, right?" Yi Xian said slowly. After hearing this, the reincarnation supremacy could not help but reveal a shocked expression. He did not expect Yi Xian to be so accurate. "That's right. I am the original body of the Life and Death Plate that turned into a demon. You are quite capable to be able to guess it." Chapter 1540. "Since that's the case, I'll return you to your original form today," Yi Xian said as he put away the base of the Life and Death Plate. His eyes were filled with killing intent. "Kill me." Reincarnation supremacy was a little confused. It was already a miracle that a 7th level samsara stage expert was able to break through the surveillance of those managers. Yet, this person actually dared to threaten to beat him back to his original form. This was truly a case of a newborn calf not fearing the tiger. Reincarnation supremacy had learned a move after breaking through to the imperishable stage. He could try it on Yi Xian. Immediately, he formed an eye of reincarnation above his head. Reincarnation supremacy also had an eye of reincarnation. However, he might have refined the two eyes of Reincarnation City Master. Therefore, his reincarnation ability was very strong. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and looked up at the eye of reincarnation. In the next moment, he saw the eye of reincarnation flash. One eye of reincarnation. This was the ultimate move that reincarnation supremacy had comprehended after breaking through to the imperishable stage. Ding! Reincarnation supremacy is attempting to reincarnate you. Do you agree?
A system notification sounded out, causing Yi Xian to be shocked. He had only been glared at by the eye of reincarnation. How could he be reincarnated? Reject. Yi Xian shuddered and hurriedly replied. What kind of joke was this? It was not easy for him to climb to his current level. How could he be reincarnated? Furthermore, would there be any reincarnation after he was reincarnated? Reincarnation supremacy frowned when he saw Yi Xian's calm expression. He sighed in his heart. Could it be that he hasn't mastered this move? What he did not know was that if an ordinary person was hit by this move, they would have been turned into an unconscious body and their soul would be reincarnated. Yi Xian broke out in cold sweat. Fortunately, he was warned. Otherwise, he would be in trouble. Reincarnation supremacy was really good at playing tricks on others. This time, Yi Xian did not waste any more time and directly attacked. Killing intent explosion. Heaven-burning sword technique. A flaming sword chi tore through the air. If this attack landed on a 9th-level Samsara stage expert, it would be enough to severely injure them. However, the Reincarnation Venerable was already in the undead realm. Facing this attack, the Reincarnation Venerable merely raised his hand and defeated it. There was indeed a huge gap between the rebirth stage and the imperishable stage. Brat, you actually dared to attack me. Fine. I'll teach you a lesson today. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Reincarnation supremacy coldly snorted. Even though he was teaching Yi Xian a lesson, his aged eyes were filled with killing intent. Clearly, he wanted to kill Yi Xian. Let's see if it's you who dies today, or me. Yi Xian mustered up all his energy. After all, he was facing an imperishable realm expert. If he was at the 8th level of the Samsara stage, he would not need to fear reincarnation supremacy. However, he was currently at the 7th level of the Samsara stage. There was a difference of 3 levels and 1 large level between them. Therefore, he had no choice but to be cautious. The two of them looked at each other for a second before Reincarnation Venerable made his move. Swoosh! Reincarnation Venerable casually sent out a true energy slash, but Yi Xian did not dodge. Instead, he retaliated. Explosion of killing intent. Sky-burning sword technique. When the flaming sword chi collided with Reincarnation Venerable's true energy slash, 2 figures suddenly appeared behind Reincarnation Venerable. Reincarnation Venerable raised his eyebrows as he suddenly sensed something. However, Old Tree had already used remnant flames to flash behind Reincarnation Venerable and threw out a punch. The punch accurately landed on Reincarnation Venerable's back. However, to everyone's astonishment, it only managed to break through Reincarnation Venerable's defense and slightly burned him. Undead realm experts possessed the indestructible body, so their physical strength had improved by leaps and bounds. In addition to Reincarnation Venerable's true energy defense, the punch did not manage to injure him much. However, the indestructible body of an undead realm expert was extremely difficult to repair. The mysterious life chi was unable to heal him, so the burn was still there. Reincarnation Venerable did not care at all. He snorted and said, "Your power is not bad, but it's not that easy to kill me." If it was the previous him, he would have been severely injured by this punch. However, he was now in the undead realm, so his physical strength was at least 3 times stronger than before. It was already good enough that Old Tree could break through his true energy defense. However, Old Tree's attack was not over yet. Flaming Sun Rope. Old Tree clenched his left hand, and a flaming chain wrapped around Reincarnation Venerable's neck. Then he pulled it hard. This move was very insidious, and most people would not be able to defend against it. If it was before, Old Tree's pull would be enough to tear off a person's head. However, it could not make Reincarnation Venerable's body tremble at all now. Not only that, when Old Tree could not pull the flaming chain, Reincarnation Venerable's true energy surged out of his body and broke the flaming chain in an instant. At the same time, Skeletal King had already rushed over with his heaven-shaking sword and slashed down fiercely. Clang! A crisp sound was heard. Yi Xian was shocked when he took a closer look. Reincarnation Venerable had actually grabbed the heaven-shaking sword with one hand and blocked the Skeletal King's full-force slash with one hand. Was the undead realm really that powerful? In fact, when Old Tree injured Reincarnation Venerable could have quickly sent Old Tree flying or escaped by himself. However, he did not do so because he wanted to test how powerful the undead body was. Now he finally understood. The Skeletal King's attack had surpassed Old Tree's punch, and it was enough to kill a 9th-level Samsara realm expert. However, Reincarnation Venerable had blocked it with one hand. His physique was so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. However, the Skeletal King's attack was not over yet. Death Gaze. Out of nowhere, an eye of death suddenly appeared in the air and glared at Reincarnation Venerable. However, the death gaze that consumed 5% of the Elegy of Soul's enhancement was useless against Reincarnation Venerable. Impossible. Even an undead realm expert can't be unscathed. What exactly is Reincarnation Venerable? Yi Xian was shocked. However, he soon thought of something. Reincarnation Venerable was not a human, but an artifact that had turned into a demon. Therefore, he might be immune to the death gaze. Kid, I admit that you're quite capable. However, I'm not someone you can provoke now. Dang. Suddenly, a cold voice entered Yi Xian's ears. Then, Yi Xian saw a figure rushing toward him. The speed was too fast. Reincarnation Venerable turned into an afterimage and attacked Yi Xian. He did not need to use any divine ability to deal with Yi Xian. Whoosh! Reincarnation Venerable clenched his right hand and directly stabbed Yi Xian's heart after arriving in front of Yi Xian. For an undead realm expert, the heart was no longer a vital point. The only vital point was the brain. Moreover, even if the brain was damaged, an undead realm expert could use the undead blood essence to revive. Chapter 1541. Reincarnation Venerable did not know that Yi Xian had the Eye of Eternity, so he wanted to pierce through Yi Xian's heart so that Yi Xian would die. Poof! A crisp sound was heard. Reincarnation Venerable's arm directly pierced through Yi Xian's chest and pierced through his heart. His arm even came out from his back with some flesh and blood. Martial artists below the imperishable realm would definitely die if their hearts were pierced. However, Yi Xian was not. Instead, he opened his eyes wide and locked his hands on Reincarnation Venerable's shoulders. What? Reincarnation Venerable was shocked. Logically speaking, Yi Xian should have died immediately. How could he still move? This was impossible. At this moment, he suddenly felt a terrifying energy gathering above his head. When he reacted, he saw a flaming hoof stomping on him. Unicorn's Descent. This move was Yi Xian's strongest attack. With his realm, as long as the enemy was below the imperishable realm, they would be killed instantly. However, he was facing an imperishable realm expert this time. It was not easy to hurt an expert with an indestructible body. When Unicorn's foot landed, Yi Xian could not hurt him because he had the protection of true qi. Reincarnation Venerable was accurately stomped on. His clothes were directly burned to ashes, and even his body was covered in blood. Although the indestructible body was powerful, Reincarnation Venerable had just broken through after all. His strength was at the bottom of the imperishable realm. However, this was enough to show the power of the indestructible body. Huff, huff. While Reincarnation Venerable was vomiting blood, the old tree and Skeleton King quickly rushed over. Get lost! Reincarnation Venerable was furious. Several black and white light balls gushed out from his body and entered the old tree and Skeleton King's bodies at lightning speed. Ding! Reincarnation Venerable is trying to reincarnate the Ash's spirit. Do you agree? Ding! Reincarnation Venerable is trying to reincarnate the Skeleton King. Do you agree? Reject! Reject! Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he had it. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. Due to the failure of Samsara, the old tree and the skeletal monarch rushed over and attacked together. Bang! Pooh! The old tree's fire fist attack and the Skeleton King's full-powered slash both injured Reincarnation Knight. Among them, the skeletal monarch had already activated the Undying War Soul. All of its attributes had doubled, and its attack power was much stronger than before. Reincarnation Supremacy's injuries worsened. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that Unicorn could be used again. What? Venerable Reincarnation, who was covered in blood, was shocked. Before he could react, the flaming hoof had already stepped on him. Bang! The earth trembled as flames surged forth. Venerable Samsara was struck once again. When Yi Xian saw this, he couldn't help but reveal a mocking expression. Who told you to be pretentious? Who told you to be pretentious? Now you're satisfied. What indestructible realm? What indestructible body? Weren't they still beaten to death by him? However, after the 2 unicorn strikes, Yi Xian did not hear the system notification. In other words, Venerable Samsara was still alive. "You bastard! I'm going to kill you!" Venerable Samsara was covered in blood. He stomped his feet and charged towards Yi Xian like a cannonball. This punch was enough to kill any 9th-level Samsara realm expert. This time, his target was Yi Xian's head. Yi Xian was still alive even after his heart was pierced. Therefore, Venerable Samsara wanted to test his brain. He did not believe that Yi Xian also had an indestructible body. Although Yi Xian would not die even if his brain was destroyed, Venerable Samsara's punch would blast his entire head, including his 2 eyes. Yi Xian would not allow his 2 clones to die again. Rip! A crisp sound was suddenly heard. A spatial crack suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Then, Venerable Samsara's punch went straight in. As for where the exit of the spatial crack was, it was needless to say. It was naturally behind reincarnation supremacy. Bang! Venerable Samsara's right hand passed through the spatial crack and smashed into the back of his head. He was shocked because Yi Xian also had the Eye of Space. How was this possible? It was already a miracle for 2 Eye of Space to appear in the land of reincarnation. Now there was a third one? Venerable Samsara had to pay the price in blood for this. Venerable Samsara's fist smashed into the back of his head. His entire body leaned forward and his upper body passed through the spatial crack. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yi Xian used the Eye of Space again and quickly closed the spatial crack. Whoosh! When the spatial crack closed, even Venerable Samsara, who had an indestructible body, could not resist the power of space. His upper body was directly cut off, including his left hand. By the time he came out of the spatial crack, only his upper body and right hand were left. No matter how strong the indestructible body was, it was not stronger than the power of space. In addition, the indestructible body was difficult to heal. Venerable Samsara would probably have to fight with his upper body and only one hand. No, this is impossible. Venerable Samsara was shocked. Was he, who was in the indestructible realm, going to die here? Impossible. However, Venerable Samsara could not beat Yi Xian at his peak. Instead, he was severely injured. Now, only his upper body was left. The part that was cut by the spatial crack was bleeding profusely. If this continued, he was afraid that he would die. Could it be that I have to use the indestructible blood essence? Venerable Samsara had a flash of inspiration. The indestructible blood essence was the resurrection method of indestructible realm experts. Even if their physical body was destroyed, as long as their soul was still there, they could be revived. After all, the indestructible blood essence was stored in the soul. This thought just flashed through his mind because the indestructible blood essence could not be used before the indestructible body was completely dead. If that was the case, wouldn't he be beaten up again? Under normal circumstances, the indestructible realm experts would find a quiet place to use the indestructible blood essence to restore their physical body after they were completely dead. Ordinary people could not see or sense the soul, so it was very difficult for indestructible realm experts to die with the indestructible blood essence. However, even if Venerable Samsara had the indestructible blood essence, Yi Xian had to kill him. If he did not kill him, wouldn't the drop of indestructible blood essence always be there? Just as Venerable Samsara was seriously injured, the old tree and the skeletal king had already arrived in front of him. If the skeletal king had the sky-shattering meteor slash, Venerable Samsara would probably be killed instantly. Of course, even if it did not, Venerable Samsara would still be dead. Under the pincer attack of the old tree and the skeletal king, Venerable Samsara was bleeding from his 7 orifices and looked like he was on the verge of death. Brat, if you think you can kill me like this, you're too naive. Venerable Samsara roared as he resisted the attacks of the old tree and the skeletal king from both sides. You're about to die and you're still talking nonsense. Chapter 1542. Although reincarnation supremacy possessed the indestructible blood essence, it belonged to the skeletal dragon after all. Even if reincarnation supremacy refined it, he might not be able to use it. Secondly, as long as Venerable Samsara was killed, he might revert back to his original form. However, just in case, Yi Xian took out the space crossing token and crushed it. Whoosh! A space crossing door opened. Yi Xian had already informed Hu Xing'er of this matter through Luo Luo a long time ago. During his battle with Venerable Samsara, Hu Xing'er had already gathered several experts at the 9th level of the Samsara stage. They had been waiting for Yi Xian in the reincarnation hall of the 100 Fox Villa. Now, their opportunity had finally arrived. When the space-crossing door appeared in the reincarnation hall, Hu Xing'er and the others quickly passed through it and arrived at the reincarnation peak. There were a total of 6 people who came this time. Other than Hu Xing'er and Zhuang Fei, there were 4 other 9th-level Samsara Realm Fox clan leaders. Reincarnation supremacy has indeed broken through to the indestructible stage. However, his current state. Zhuang Fei was slightly surprised because reincarnation supremacy was only left with his upper body. He was fighting against the old tree and the skeletal king. Moreover, he was being suppressed. If it was not for his indestructible body, he would have died long ago. Before they arrived, only Yi Xian and the others were present. Did this mean that reincarnation supremacy was beaten up by Yi Xian and the others? It was unbelievable. Reincarnation supremacy was an indestructible stage expert. Seniors, reincarnation supremacy possesses a drop of indestructible blood essence, Yi Xian said hurriedly. In fact, when Yi Xian told Luo Luo that reincarnation supremacy had broken through to the indestructible stage, these experts had already guessed the reason. Although Hu Xing'er's half of the dragon bone did not possess the indestructible blood essence, it possessed a little of its power. Therefore, they deduced that there should be a drop of indestructible blood essence in the other half of the dragon bone. If reincarnation supremacy possessed this drop of indestructible blood essence, it would be difficult to kill him. This reincarnation venerable was formed by the life and death plate. I wonder if he'll return to his original form after I kill him, or if his soul will wander between heaven and earth in search of a suitable place to be revived using the undying essence blood, Zhuang Fei said with a frown. Then what should we do? Why don't we capture this reincarnation supremacy first? A clan leader suggested. Good idea. That's right. Seal his cultivation level first. We'll decide later. The other patriarchs nodded. However, reincarnation venerable seemed to have heard their conversation. He suddenly laughed out loud and said, "Ha ha ha, do you think you can capture me with just the 2 of you?" Venerable reincarnation knew that he was doomed this time, but he would rather die than be captured by the other party. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed greatly. Not good, he's going to, Zhuang Fei shouted. Just as he was about to help, he saw Samsara Venerable's body turn into nothingness quickly, and so did his interspatial ring. Suicide. Reincarnation supremacy had actually committed suicide. Yi Xian had not expected this, but there was nothing he could do. After all, he could not stop reincarnation supremacy from committing suicide. In the blink of an eye, reincarnation supremacy's body disappeared before everyone's eyes. Souls could not be seen with the naked eye, and could not be sensed with a spiritual consciousness. However, Yi Xian's eye of revelation locked onto a strange energy in reincarnation supremacy's body. Could this be a soul? Yi Xian widened his eyes in shock. Then he quickly closed his eyes and looked with the old tree and the skeletal king's eyes, but he did not find anything. The eye of revelation could actually see souls. Of course, this was only the soul of an imperishable realm expert. When Yi Xian killed Qiu Feng and Gao Yunlong earlier, he did not find this strange energy. It seemed that the eye of revelation could see the souls of imperishable realm experts. Perhaps it was because there was a drop of imperishable blood essence in reincarnation supremacy's soul. Of course, it was also possible that the Eye of Revelation had become more powerful after reaching the immortal Eye realm a few times. Anyway, he actually saw reincarnation supremacy's soul. This was going to be fun. What should we do? Reincarnation supremacy is dead. He should be in a soul state now. I don't know where he went. A clan leader asked in surprise. Reincarnation supremacy was a big problem. If they did not get rid of him, there would be a lot of trouble when he was resurrected in the future. However, now that reincarnation supremacy was dead and they could not see his soul, how could they find the resurrection point of reincarnation supremacy? Let's not care about reincarnation supremacy. Let's act according to the plan. Hu Xing'er suddenly said. But Manor Lord, young Manor Lord she. Zhuang Fei suddenly reminded her. It's okay. She still has half a year. A senior has already promised to help her reincarnate. Hu Xing'er did not think much of it. At the same time, her gaze fell on Yi Xian. Next, before Luo Luo turned 18, Yi Xian should be able to break through to the imperishable realm. At that time, reincarnation supremacy might surpass her. At that time, there would be no need to ask Tianju Elder for help. Yi Xian glanced at the soul that was quietly escaping towards the northeast and asked, Senior, how long will the soul of an imperishable realm expert exist between heaven and earth? This depends on each person's realm. Reincarnation supremacy has just broken through to the imperishable realm. He has a drop of imperishable blood essence and can exist between heaven and earth for a year. As long as he finds a place within a year, he will be able to be reborn. Hu Xing'er replied. Previously, Yi Xian had also asked Hu Xing'er about the imperishable realm. There were a total of 3 realms in the reincarnation realm. They were the profound life realm, the profound death realm and the samsara realm. The imperishable realm was also divided into 2 realms. One was the imperishable body and the other was the imperishable soul. As long as an expert with an imperishable body had a drop of imperishable blood essence in his soul when he died, then his soul would not immediately dissipate between heaven and earth. Instead, it could wander between heaven and earth. This situation was called a wandering soul. In other words, it was a wandering soul. This soul was also very strange. It could retain the memories of its life, but it could only faintly sense the nearby creatures. It could not see people, so generally, after death, it would need to find a hidden place to be reborn from a drop of blood. In other words, it was to rebuild the imperishable body. As for experts with an imperishable soul, they could condense a soul seed. This soul seed could be placed in a place. If the original body and soul were to be destroyed at the same time, the soul seed would take effect and then be reborn. This was much more terrifying than an imperishable body. Therefore, in the imperishable realm, unless the opponent did not have the imperishable blood essence or soul seed, it would be very difficult to kill the opponent in the imperishable realm. After Yi Xian heard Hu Xing'er's words, he also fell into deep thought. Reincarnation supremacy's soul perception was very small and probably could not sense them anymore. However, he could see that reincarnation supremacy's soul was still moving, but at a very slow speed. Chapter 1543. It was a pity that Yi Xian did not have the ability to erase souls, so there was no exchange. No, there was an exchange, but it required devour points. The Burning Sky Sword technique was also a growth-type divine power, but it could not be upgraded to an undying divine power, so Yi Xian wanted to exchange for a new one. He quickly looked around and finally locked onto a special divine power. This divine ability had both a physical attack and a special soul attack. Yi Xian also had a normal soul attack, which was the Eye of the Soul. However, the Eye of the Soul could not attack the reincarnation venerable in his soul form. As for this special soul attack, it was able to attack souls that had no body. However, this divine power required 2 devour points, so Yi Xian was hesitating on whether to exchange for it. Now that I have 6 devour points, if I use 2 to exchange for it, I will only have 4 points left. However, this special soul attack will probably come in handy in the future, and with my Eye of Revelation, it will not be a problem to kill the reincarnation venerable before he revives with his undying blood essence. Yi Xian thought for a moment and finally made a decision. Ding! Do you want to spend 2 devour points to exchange for the Nihility Flame Sword Ripple? Yes. Ding! Nihility Flame Sword Ripple successfully exchanged. Do you want to learn it now? Yes. Ding! Host has learned the Nihility Flame Sword Ripple. When the system notification sounded, Yi Xian also learned a new divine power, the Nihility Flame Sword Ripple. This divine power could not only be upgraded continuously, but it could also be used to attack wandering souls. In addition, it was of the fire attribute, so it was a divine power that was tailor-made for Yi Xian. Reincarnation Venerable. You are dead meat. After Yi Xian learned the Nihility Flame Sword Ripple, his eyes could not help but emit 2 rays of light. He looked at the reincarnation venerable's soul that was far away from the reincarnation peak, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Senior, the reincarnation venerable is not completely dead yet. I will catch up to him. Yi Xian suddenly said to Hu Xing'er. Hearing this, Hu Xing'er and the others were stunned. Hu Xing'er was even more surprised. You can see wandering souls? Yes, I can see reincarnation venerable's wandering soul. He's heading northeast. I think he's looking for a resurrection point. Yi Xian nodded. Even an imperishable realm expert wouldn't be able to see the wandering souls wandering around in search of a resurrection point if they didn't have this ability. Even if they could see it, it was not something that ordinary people could kill. Of course, if one had a deep grudge with the other party, then this person would follow the wandering soul all the way, making it unable to find a resurrection point and disappear from the world. This process was sometimes very long. After all, the existence of the wandering soul was related to the realm of the deceased. Even so, there were still many people who did this. If there was really a deep hatred between them, so what if he spent a few years following a wandering soul? Although the wandering souls could not see people, they could still sense people around them. If they were being followed, they would not be able to resurrect in peace. Over time, their minds would collapse. They had the imperishable blood essence, but they could not find a safe place to resurrect. This was too cruel. After hearing that Yi Xian could see wandering souls and seemed to have the means to kill them, Hu Xing'er and the others were shocked. If that's the case, then let's kill Reincarnation Venerable to prevent future troubles, Hu Xing'er said solemnly. At first, Yi Xian had the same thought. However, he thought of another matter and said, Senior, the Reincarnation City Lord died mysteriously. I think Reincarnation Venerable might have helpers. I want to follow him and see what happens. After hearing his words, Hu Xing'er and the others suddenly thought of this matter. The poison that the Reincarnation City Lord was poisoned with was too strange. The matter was probably not that simple. Since Reincarnation Venerable was dead, even if he had the imperishable blood essence, he would need time to resurrect. If Yi Xian followed him now, he could directly erase Reincarnation Venerable's soul if the situation went south. Okay, then be careful. Hu Xing'er nodded. Then I'll take my leave first. After finishing his words, Yi Xian directly took out Gao Yunlong's corpse and rushed towards the northeast. However, his speed was not very fast because Reincarnation Venerable's wandering soul was very slow compared to him. The range of a wandering soul's perception was about 1/10 of the range of his spiritual consciousness when he was alive. Therefore, Yi Xian had no difficulty in following him. After all, Reincarnation Venerable's soul could not see or sense him. As for Hu Xing'er, she was preparing to search Gao Yunlong's corpse to see if she could find any clues. Yi Xian suspected that Reincarnation Venerable had helpers who might even be in the imperishable realm. That was why he could secretly poison the Reincarnation City Lord. It was a pity that Reincarnation Venerable's interspatial ring was destroyed by himself. He did not know where the Reincarnation City Lord's corpse was. Yi Xian used his eye of revelation to follow Reincarnation Venerable's wandering soul. The latter would never have imagined that someone could see through his soul. Very soon, a day had passed. This wandering soul was as slow as a tortoise, but its speed was already faster than an ordinary 9th-level Samsara realm expert. Just as Yi Xian was about to destroy Reincarnation Venerable's wandering soul, Reincarnation Venerable suddenly arrived at a mountain range. This seems to be Mount Eternal? Yi Xian raised his eyebrows as he recognized it. The Reincarnation Peak and Mount Eternal were very far apart. However, Reincarnation Venerable's wandering soul's speed was comparable to an ordinary 9th-level Samsara realm expert. It was possible for him to reach Mount Eternal from the Reincarnation Peak within a day. Yi Xian followed behind the wandering soul and entered Mount Eternal. He had a feeling that Mount Eternal was a little strange. He was afraid that it was not as simple as it seemed. After a while, Reincarnation Venerable's soul suddenly descended as though he was looking for a resurrection point. Yi Xian hurriedly followed him. However, at this moment, a group of black figures suddenly swept over from afar. What is this? Yi Xian immediately focused his eyes. When he saw what this group of figures was, his body could not help but tremble violently. Spiders. This was a group of spiders. Furthermore, they were large spiders with wings. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that these flying spiders were astonishingly fast. They had probably reached the 8th level of the Samsara realm. There were even a few that were at the 9th level of the Samsara realm. In Reincarnation Venerable's northern camp, there were 3 great danger zones. The first was the Life and Death Canyon, the second was the Reincarnation Peak, and the third was Mount Eternal. However, no matter how dangerous Mount Eternal was, it would not have so many high-level heaven-connecting beasts. This group of flying spiders seemed to number in the hundreds. Something's wrong. Yi Xian immediately reacted and immediately took out the Scarlet Flame Sword. It seemed that Mount Eternal was Reincarnation Venerable's resurrection point. His helpers might also be here. Since that was the case, Reincarnation Venerable was no longer useful. They could not wait for him to be resurrected. Chapter 1544. Nihility Flame Sword Ripple. Without hesitation, Yi Xian launched an attack on Reincarnation Supremacy's wandering soul. A formless sword aura pierced through the air and instantly struck Reincarnation Supremacy's fist-sized soul. The soul was a very special existence. Ordinary attacks couldn't hurt the soul at all and would pass through it. However, Yi Xian's Nihility Flame Sword Ripple had a special soul attack that could hurt the soul. Reincarnation Supremacy's soul had consciousness. Along the way, he had cursed Yi Xian several times, but Yi Xian couldn't hear him. When he arrived at Mount Eternal, he seemed to have seen the dawn of hope. He wanted to use the drop of undying blood essence stored in his soul to resurrect and take revenge. Unfortunately, he didn't know that Yi Xian was following him. He also didn't know that Yi Xian had the means to erase his soul. When the Nihility Flame Sword Ripple struck his body, he immediately felt unbearable pain. With the eye of revelation, Yi Xian saw a formless flame burning Reincarnation Supremacy's soul. The fist-sized soul trembled violently as if it was about to explode. A second later, the ball of flame was burned and dissipated from the world. With Reincarnation Supremacy's soul destroyed, he couldn't even reincarnate, let alone resurrect. However, killing the soul didn't benefit Yi Xian at all. Moreover, after Reincarnation Supremacy's soul died, the drop of undying blood essence also dissipated. Reincarnation Supremacy was dead, and Yi Xian had avenged half of the Samsara City Lord's death. Now, it was time to deal with another problem. A second later, the 100 flying spiders flew over and surrounded Yi Xian in a black mass. Without hesitation, Yi Xian summoned Old Tree and the other two. If all the flying spiders were at the 9th level of the Samsara realm, Yi Xian might be afraid. However, it was a pity that there were 5 9th-level Samsara realm flying spiders in this group. Young master, should we kill them all? Old Tree asked with a smile. Yi Xian paused for a moment, then shook his head and said, "Don't kill them. Just send them flying. I have a use for them." Hearing this, the Old Tree was stunned for a moment, then immediately reacted. There was still a use for them. That was to use the Feast of Slaughter. No problem. Old Tree replied with a smile. There were so many flying spiders. If they were all killed, Yi Xian's strength would at least double. There might be a helper of Samsara Venerable in Mount Eternal, the one who killed the master of Samsara City. This person might also be in the Eternal Realm, so Yi Xian had to be careful. Without waiting for the flying spider to attack, Yi Xian immediately dove down. The flying spiders could sense that Yi Xian was only at the 7th level of the Samsara stage, but they could not be bothered with him. Their attention was completely focused on the Old Tree, the Skeleton King and Wei Zhentian. Yi Xian broke away from the encirclement and directly rushed into Mount Eternal. He wanted to find the expert hidden in Mount Eternal. Although Mount Eternal was huge, with his speed, he could cross it in less than a minute if he went at full speed. Of course, most people would not be so foolish as there would be many heaven-reaching beasts below. Once Yi Xian stepped into their territory, he would be attacked. However, when Yi Xian flew over at a low altitude, he realized that the heaven-reaching beasts in Mount Eternal were all spiders. Why not change the name of Mount Eternal to Spider Mountain? It seems that these heaven-reaching spider beasts were reared by that expert. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and began to investigate Mount Eternal. Along the way, there were low-level spiders blocking his path, but they were all killed by his Void Flame Sword Wave. He had just used Unicorn Descent a day ago, but this cooldown required him to devour the corpses of the heaven-reaching beasts. Therefore, these spider corpses happened to be of use to Yi Xian. However, after Yi Xian scanned the area, he finally discovered a powerful aura in the center of Mount Eternal. It's not the slightest bit inferior to the Reincarnation Supremacy. Another imperishable stage expert. Yi Xian widened his eyes. He was right to be cautious. He did not expect that there would be an imperishable stage expert hidden in Mount Eternal. Fortunately, this imperishable stage expert seemed to be the same as the Reincarnation Supremacy. They were both at the 1st level of the imperishable physical body. However, now that Yi Xian's Unicorn Descent and Sky-Shattering Meteor Slash were both on cooldown, it would be a little troublesome to deal with them. I don't care. Yi Xian did not care so much. He directly condensed an eye of myriad in the distance and then began to bombard the imperishable stage expert's mountain. Boom! 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 Under the powerful bombardment of the 10,000 mammoth force, the mountain quickly collapsed. At the same time, The imperishable stage powerhouse inside suddenly opened his eyes, and then rushed out explosively. Who dares to be so presumptuous? A loud shout entered Yi Xian's ears, followed by an old figure. The person who came was an old man dressed in black. His appearance was no different from an ordinary old man, but Yi Xian saw a colorful spider crawling on the old man's face. What the hell? What a disgusting taste. Yi Xian had always been disgusted by creatures with many legs, such as spiders, centipedes, and so on. If a spider crawled on his face, even if it was only at the manifestation stage, it would make him feel disgusted to death. Not to mention, this colorful spider was actually at the peak of the 9th level of the Samsara realm. Who are you? Why are you in Mount Eternal? Yi Xian went straight to the point. And who are you? The black-robed old man asked in return. He found it very strange because he did not conceal his aura. Yi Xian was only at the 7th level of the Samsara realm, but he dared to ask him directly. He was quite bold. I have been cultivating in seclusion here since 100 years ago. I only left for a short period of time, but you have already taken over this place? Yi Xian pretended to have lived for a few thousand years and said, 100 years? When the old man heard this, his eyes could not help but narrow slightly. He did not believe Yi Xian's nonsense because he had reared flying spiders all around Mount Eternal. How could Yi Xian, who was only at the 7th level of the Samsara realm, come to the center of Mount Eternal? When he thought of this, 2 rays of killing intent suddenly shot out from his eyes and he questioned, Who sent you here? When Yi Xian heard this, he knew that he had been exposed. After all, he was only at the 7th level of the Samsara realm. How could he break through the encirclement and come here? Since the old man had already guessed it, Yi Xian did not hide it and said directly, It was you who killed the Samsara city governor, right? You are quite capable to be able to find this place. That's right, I was the one who killed the Samsara city governor. The old man smiled. Yi Xian was only at the 7th level of the Samsara realm, so he naturally did not take him seriously. Out of boredom, he could not help but chat with Yi Xian. Chapter 1545. It's just a small dose of the Poison King powder. The Poison King powder poisons the soul, not the body. He's quite capable to be able to hold on for half a day. I'm only responsible for poisoning him. As for the rest, I'll leave it to reincarnation supremacy, the old man replied. Before hearing this reply, Yi Xian had already guessed it. After all, there were no wounds when Reincarnation City Governor died. Then, Reincarnation Supremacy's men killed their way in and snatched his corpse. What a coincidence. Reincarnation Supremacy died yesterday, Yi Xian said. Dead. The old man was slightly surprised. Reincarnation Supremacy has already broken through to the imperishable realm. One has to be at least at the imperishable realm to kill him. Does this mean that you're from Reincarnation Fox? Yi Xian did not answer his question. Instead, he asked, I remember that there are no imperishable realm experts in the land of reincarnation. Where did you come from? Due to certain reasons, the old man could not tell Yi Xian his identity. He only wanted to control reincarnation supremacy to achieve his goals. However, he did not expect that reincarnation supremacy, who had broken through to the imperishable realm, would be killed. Fortunately, he knew that reincarnation supremacy had a drop of imperishable blood essence. It would be easy for him to be resurrected. I've already violated the agreement by attacking once. However, given the current situation, it shouldn't be a problem for me to kill Reincarnation Fox again. The old man thought to himself. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes when he saw the old man in deep thought. Although the old man did not say where he came from, all he had to do was kill him and search his soul. Reincarnation Supremacy had just broken through to the imperishable realm. However, this old man was obviously stronger than Reincarnation Supremacy. There might be many good things in his interspatial ring. There was hope for him to break through to the 8th level of the Samsara realm. Kid, did Reincarnation Fox ask you to bring this news to me? The old man asked. Yes or no? What's the difference? Yi Xian asked. There's no difference. In any case, I'll be the one to kill her. The old man smiled and shook his head. Yi Xian was shocked when he heard this. You can kill her? If it was a few decades ago, it might not have been possible. But now, there are no restrictions. However, I will not lower myself to make a move against you. The old man raised his eyebrows, and in the next moment, a huge flying spider appeared. Peak 9th level Samsara stage. Following that, the old man set off for the west. Not good. Yi Xian's expression changed as he hurriedly issued a death pursuit order on the old man. However, at this moment, the peak 9th level Samsara stage flying spider directly charged towards Yi Xian. A mere Samsara stage practitioner dares to find trouble with me? Yi Xian snorted coldly and directly gave orders to the old tree and the skeleton king outside Mount Eternal. Kill. At the same time, the feast of slaughter began. Outside Mount Eternal, the old tree and the other two had always been there. After receiving Yi Xian's order, Old Tree's trio immediately went all out and started killing. As 9th level Samsara stage practitioners, it was too easy for them to deal with these small fries. On the other side, Yi Xian, who was at the center of Mount Eternal, directly launched an attack on the huge flying spider. Killing intent explosion. Nihility flame sword ripple. An invisible sword chi attacked the peak 9th level Samsara stage flying spider. Although the flying spider could not see with its 12 eyes, it could sense it. However, due to Yi Xian's cultivation base, it did not take Yi Xian seriously. Bang! The Nihility flame sword ripple blasted the flying spider and Unicorn's vital energy immediately burned. Unicorn's vital energy had the effect of burning everything under the heavens. In addition to Unicorn's deterrence and other bloodline effects, Yi Xian's sword directly killed the flying spider. In the blink of an eye, the 9th level Samsara stage flying spider was burned until only half of its body was left. Ding! Host's killing intent has increased. When Yi Xian heard the system notification, he immediately flew over and kept the flying spider's corpse. Although it was only half a corpse, the beast soul in the body was still intact. This was very valuable to Yi Xian. Then, Yi Xian turned his head and looked into the distance. He realized that the imperishable stage black-robed old man had already disappeared into the horizon. What fast speed! Ribs, go and stop him. Yi Xian immediately gave the Skeleton King an order. The Skeleton King received the order and immediately rushed out, preparing to intercept the old man. Fortunately, the center of Mount Eternal was some distance away from the entrance. The Skeleton King saw the black-robed old man. When the black-robed old man saw the Skeleton King, he could not help but be shocked. He muttered, "There's actually a rare Skeleton King." The Skeleton King was a rare mutated beast. Moreover, it was at the 9th level Samsara stage. Most people would have thoughts about it, but the black-robed old man did not. Die! The black-robed old man immediately attacked and threw a punch at the Skeleton King. Boom! The punch was so fast that the Skeleton King's hard armor shattered. A large hole was punched through it. However, the Skeleton King was not even at 2/5 of its original state. Naturally, the Skeleton King would not die. You're quite capable. A strange expression appeared on the old man's face once again. Ordinary heaven-reaching beasts were able to heal themselves, but the Skeleton King's speed had already surpassed that of ordinary heaven-reaching beasts. Even the peak 9th level Samsara realm flying spider that he had summoned earlier did not have this ability. However, he still did not care about the Skeleton King. Die! The old man threw another punch. This time, he directly shattered the lower half of the Skeleton King's body. The degree of damage was at 7/5. Unfortunately, as long as the Skeleton King's injuries did not reach 4/5 of its original state, the system would not judge it as dead. Then it could continue to heal. After 2 punches, the Skeleton King had already arrived in front of the old man and slashed down with its sword. Clang! The old man punched out with one hand and collided with the heaven-shaking greatsword. His powerful physique shattered the Skeleton King's palm, and the heaven-shaking greatsword bounced back. However, there was only a red mark on the old man's hand. An imperishable stage expert was indeed extremely powerful. Your strength is not bad. You can kill a peak 9th level Samsara stage expert in an instant. However, you're not qualified to face me. The old man snorted and threw another punch. However, at this moment, the Skeleton King's aura suddenly soared. Undying fighting soul. All attributes had been increased by 1-fold. Crack! The Skeleton King's defense doubled. This time, the old man's attack was unable to penetrate it. Therefore, the Skeleton King's injuries were naturally less than 4/5. How is this possible? The old man was shocked for the 3rd time. He was able to cripple the Skeleton King with 2 punches. How did the Skeleton King's defense suddenly increase? This was impossible. Whoosh whoosh. Chapter 1546. Poof. The old man instinctively raised his hand to block, but this time, the heaven-shaking sword sliced through the old man's flesh and even left a sword mark on the old man's bones. Don't forget that the Undying Battle Soul's 100% increase in all attributes was also effective on Wei Zhentian. This sudden turn of events made the black-robed old man suffer a setback. You can actually hurt my undying body. The black-robed old man could not believe it. After all, he was an Undying Realm elite and had broken through for a few years. His undying body was extremely strong and could not be broken by any random 9th-level Samsara Realm elite. However, just as he was feeling surprised, another figure suddenly appeared in the sky. This time, it was not Yi Xian but Old Tree. As for the group of flying spiders, they were left to Yi Xian. Originally, the black-robed old man wanted to go to the west of the land of reincarnation and kill the reincarnation fox. However, now that two troublemakers suddenly appeared, he could not help but feel annoyed. However, he did not mind getting rid of Old Tree and Skeletal King, these two people who did not care about their lives. However, just as he struck out a fist shadow, Old Tree appeared behind him in a flash. Remnant Flame. Bang! Old Tree attacked quickly and struck the black-robed old man's back. However, as the black-robed old man's undying body was stronger, this punch did not cause any substantial damage. However, the black-robed old man's back clothes were burned away. Bastards! You are courting death! The black-robed old man was furious. He turned around and punched Old Tree's head, causing it to explode. Old Tree's defense was not as strong as Skeletal King's, so he was instantly killed. This kind of thing was extremely rare. Fortunately, Old Tree was undying and indestructible. So what if he died? Ding! Spirit of Ashes has died. Ding! Spirit of Ashes has revived. Yi Xian, who was fighting a large group of flying spiders, immediately summoned Old Tree when he heard the notification in his mind. However, this time, most of the flying spiders were dead. Therefore, Yi Xian joined forces with Old Tree and charged toward the black-robed old man. Twofold increase. See if I can kill you? Yi Xian's eyes lit up. The Killing Feast's amplification had increased to twofold, which meant that Yi Xian could triple his combat power. Furthermore, he had spent 2 Devour points to exchange for the Nihility Flame Sword Ripple. Killing this old man should not be a problem. The black-robed old man thought that he had killed Old Tree, but when he saw Old Tree again, he was stunned. Resurrection? That was impossible. How could someone at the 9th level of the Samsara realm be revived? Moreover, even if an imperishable realm powerhouse used imperishable blood essence to revive, it would be impossible to revive in such a short time. Could they be twins? No, that's impossible. Their auras are the same. The black-robed old man immediately reacted. Not only were their auras the same, but even their abilities were the same. At this moment, the black-robed old man turned his attention to Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian was only at the 7th level of the Samsara realm, so the black-robed old man was not interested in him at all. However, in the next moment, he was shocked. Eye of Space. Void Flame Sword. After approaching, Yi Xian immediately used the Eye of Space and tore open a crack in space. Then, he suddenly attacked with his sword. An invisible sword chi slashed into the spatial fissure, and then struck the black-robed old man's back from behind. Boom! The black-robed old man's back was severely injured, and his entire body flew forward. At the same time, the unicorn's Incinerate the World effect was activated. The black-robed old man's back was set ablaze, burning his flesh and blood. With 3 times the combat strength, the Void Flame Sword, and various bloodlines, Yi Xian had the ability to severely injure an imperishable stage expert. If this attack had landed on Reincarnation Supremacy, it would have killed him instantly. However, Yi Xian did not have the Void Flame Sword or the Massacre Feast's enhancement. Furthermore, Yi Xian had devoured the hundreds of flying spiders' corpses, and his cultivation had risen from the initial 7th level of the Samsara realm to the intermediate 7th level of the Samsara realm. Therefore, this attack had severely injured the black-robed old man. This is impossible. The black-robed old man was shocked. He could not believe that he had been injured by a junior at the 7th level of the Samsara realm. The Skeletal Sovereign and the Old Tree could be ignored. After all, they were at the 9th level of the Samsara realm. However, Yi Xian was only at the 7th level of the Samsara realm.
Could it be? Did you kill reincarnation supremacy? The black-robed old man could not help but ask. Yi Xian's attack was enough to kill an imperishable stage expert. If the black-robed old man had not reacted quickly, that sword would have landed on the back of his head. If that had happened, even he would have been killed instantly. This strength was enough to kill reincarnation supremacy. That's right. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly as he replied. However, he did not want to waste his breath on the black-robed old man. He would kill him first. Whoosh whoosh. Before the black-robed old man could stabilize himself, a strong gust of wind appeared again. The skeletal sovereign, who had activated his undying battle soul, swung his sword horizontally. Bam! The black-robed old man finally reacted and threw another punch. This time, he was sent flying backwards. Unfortunately, there was someone blocking him from behind. Flaming Sun Lasso. Waning Flame. The old tree was not stingy and immediately used his skill. His left hand pulled on the flaming chain while his right hand smashed towards the back of the black-robed old man's head. Scram! The black-robed old man shouted as a massive wave of vital energy surged out from his body. However, before that, the old tree activated another skill. Blazing Fire Shield. Boom! The vital energy shook the blazing fire shield. Fortunately, the old tree was at the 9th level of the Samsara realm and had broken through to the peak of the 9th level of the Samsara realm because Yi Xian had devoured so many corpses. Otherwise, the blazing fire shield would have shattered. Apart from defense, the blazing fire shield could also absorb attacks. After the black-robed old man's vital energy was absorbed, he immediately detonated it. Bam! The blazing fire shield suddenly exploded and a heat wave surged. Its power was not to be underestimated. Just now, the black-clothed old man's back had been attacked by the Nihility Flame Sword Wave. Although that shock had extinguished the flames formed by the Qilin Genuine Qi, due to the indestructible body, his injuries had not recovered. Now, the explosion of the raging fire shield had caused him to suffer even more injuries. However, that was not the main point. The cooperation between Yi Xian and the rest was flawless. Although the black-robed old man was an expert in the indestructible stage, he would not be able to recover once he was at a disadvantage. The black-robed old man moved forward again. However, at that moment, the skeletal sovereign suddenly extended his left hand and grabbed at the void. Grip of Hades. A strange energy wrapped around the black-robed old man and forced him to fly towards the skeletal sovereign. Chapter 1547. Don't even think about it. The black-robed old man immediately reacted. He circulated his true qi and flew back, but at this moment, Yi Xian, who had seen the opportunity, attacked again. Killing Intent Explosion. Void Flame Sword Ripple. Another spatial fissure was ripped open and the invisible sword qi emerged from the back of the black-robed old man, striking his body. Although the black-robed old man was on guard this time, his wound expanded again. One could faintly see the white bones on his bloody back. An imperishable realm expert had an indestructible body. Unless their brain was damaged, they wouldn't die even if their heart was ruptured. Although that was the case, the indestructible body was hard to heal. If such an injury was healed using mysterious life qi, it would take at least a few months. Most importantly, with injuries on the body, one's combat strength would decrease. The black-robed old man, who was at a disadvantage, became more and more serious. He didn't expect an imperishable realm expert to end up like this. It was really unexpected. You're not from the land of reincarnation. Who are you? The black-robed old man roared. Yi Xian and the others were much stronger than the land of reincarnation. If Yi Xian was from the land of reincarnation, the land of reincarnation would have been unified. As he spoke, he quickly took out a healing pill from his yin and yang ring. This could quickly suppress his injuries and slowly heal him. Unfortunately, Yi Xian wasn't prepared to answer this question. He could get the answer from the black-robed old man's memories, so why waste his breath? Kill first. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The black-robed old man flew out, but the skeleton king charged straight at him. The sky-shaking sword in the latter's hand shone with a fierce light. This attack would definitely injure the black-robed old man again. Knowing that he couldn't dodge this attack, the black-robed old man's face sank. He took out another item from his yin and yang ring. It was a black ball. When he was about to come into contact with the skeletal emperor, he crushed the ball fiercely. Pang! Hiss!
When the black ball exploded and turned into a cloud of black fog that enveloped him and the Skeleton King, the heaven-shaking sword in the Skeleton King's hand had already arrived in front of him. This move directly cut off the black-clothed old man's arm and neck. However, the black-robed old man, who possessed an indestructible body, would not die even if he was left with only a head, unless his head exploded. "Let's die together." At this moment, the black-clothed old man suddenly roared and used his genuine chi and all creation strength to blow away the black fog. In an instant, the fog also wrapped around the old tree. Yi Xian's eyes flashed as he hastily distorted space to protect himself. Although the black fog wrapped around him, it was blocked outside. Then, he heard the sound of the old tree and the Skeleton King falling one after another. Ding! The skeletal monarch has died. Ding! The spirit of ashes has died. Ding! The skeletal king has been revived. Ding! The spirit of ashes has been revived. 4 system notifications in a row caused Yi Xian to be extremely shocked. What is this? How can it kill the old tree and the Skeleton King instantly? However, why is Wei Zhentian still alive? In the next moment, he realized something. Is this the Poison King powder, a poison that directly attacks one's soul? At the thought of this, Yi Xian could not help but tremble and break out in cold sweat. Fortunately, he still had the means to distort space. Otherwise, if he was enveloped by the black fog, he would probably die. The Samsara city governor was only hit by a small dose of the Poison King powder and died after half a day. The old tree and the Skeleton King only lasted half a second. Yi Xian was only at the 7th level of the Samsara realm. If he encountered such a large dose of the Poison King powder, he would probably be kneeling on the ground in the blink of an eye. Yi Xian was so scared that he almost peed his pants. He hurriedly broke open the void and left this area. Then, he formed the eyes of all creations to disperse the black fog. Wei Zhentian, bring his head and interspatial ring here. Yi Xian ordered Wei Zhentian. Wei Zhentian was a divine artifact. He did not have a soul and was considered an anomaly. Therefore he was spared. Although the black-robed old man was not completely dead, he could only use a head and could not quickly restore his indestructible body. Therefore, he could only use a pitiful amount of genuine qi, which was not enough to fight against Wei Zhentian. However, when Yi Xian saw Wei Zhentian bring the black-robed old man's head and interspatial ring here, he knew that the black-robed old man was already dead. The old tree and the Skeleton King were both dead. The black-robed old man wanted to die together with them. Naturally, he could not be alive. Since there was no notification, Yi Xian thought that the black-robed old man was still alive. At this time, Yi Xian thought of something. The black-robed old man was hit by his Poison King powder and died together with the old tree and the Skeleton King. The Poison King powder could directly wipe out one's soul. Then, could the black-robed old man's soul be searched after his death? Yi Xian tried, but found that it was not possible. The indestructible realm was divided into the indestructible body realm and the indestructible soul realm. The black-robed old man was at the indestructible body realm. Although his soul had dissipated, it was useless even if he had 10 drops of indestructible blood essence. Of course, if the black-robed old man was at the indestructible soul realm, as long as he had a soul seed, even if his soul was destroyed, the soul seed could be revived. However, the black-robed old man was still far from the indestructible soul realm. If he's dead, then so be it. I don't have to do anything. Yi Xian shook his head and then focused his attention on the black-robed old man's interspatial ring. This old man was stronger than the reincarnation supremacy and should have come from a higher place. Yi Xian wondered how many good things he would have. After Yi Xian checked it, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Ding! Host has made a breakthrough. Host is currently at the Samsara realm level 8. Ding! Spirit of Ashes has made a breakthrough. Host is currently at the indestructible body realm level 1. Ding! Wei Zhentian has made a breakthrough. Host is currently at the indestructible body realm level 1. Ding! Skeletal King has made a breakthrough. Host is currently at the indestructible body realm level 1. Ding! Unicorn's cooldown has been lowered and it has been restored. Ding! Sky-shattering flowing rock slash's cooldown has been restored. Sure enough, there were many good things in the ring. There were even 2 indestructible realm heaven-reaching beasts' corpses. These things allowed Yi Xian and the other 3 to make a breakthrough. After making a breakthrough, the strength of the force soared. If the black-robed old man was still alive, he would have been killed instantly. Next, Yi Xian began to check the other things in the black-robed old man's interspatial ring. He wanted to know where the black-robed old man came from and what his identity was. However, at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly saw something familiar in the black-robed old man's head. This is... Yi Xian raised his eyebrows. With his eye of revelation, he saw a diamond-shaped black crystal in the black-robed old man's head. It was emitting a strange energy. Chapter 1548. Cthulhuism Society? This was Yi Xian's first reaction. He had encountered the Cthulhuism Society in the Desert of Despair. However, the Cthulhuism Society was pitifully weak at that time, and their leader was only in the fragmentation realm. Now, he had encountered the Cthulhuism Society again, and their leader was in the imperishable realm. How was this possible? Luo had memories of the Cthulhuism Society, so Yi Xian immediately sent a voice transmission back to ask who Xing, The Cthulhuism Society, also known as the Scorpion Society, is one of the factions in the Five Poison Territory in the north. Together with the 1,000-Foot Sect, the Golden Toad Sect, the Snake Shadow Palace, and the Sky Spider Sect, they are known as the Five Poison Sect. The people of the Five Poison Divine Sect are all experts in using poison. The Five Poison Divine Sect is the lair of the Five Poison Divine Sect. Moreover, it is where the Scorpion, Centipede, Toad, Spider and Demon Snake clans are located in the Glazed Light Sacred Land. This was what Hu Xing told Luo to tell Yi Xian. So, the Cthulhuism Society we encountered before is one of the Five Poison Sect? Yi Xian asked. Yes, the Scorpion Ancestor and the others use their bloodline to make the entire Glazed Light Sacred Ground believe in them, making them stronger, Luo replied. I see. Now, Yi Xian knew why the black-robed old man came to the land of reincarnation. It was probably to recruit disciples. However, the black-robed old man was also a disciple because he had the Sky Spider Sect's faith crystal in his mind. Young master, Mother said that the Five Poison Territory is the enemy of the 100-Beast Territory, Luo suddenly said. The 100-Beast Territory? Where is that? Yi Xian asked in surprise. The 100-Beast Territory is filled with other beast clans, such as the Fox Clan and the Leopard Clan. They are much stronger than the Five Poison Territory. Mother said that my father went to the 100-Beast Territory to find the Fox Ancestor and then went missing, Luo replied. The 100-Beast Territory. The 100-Beast Territory was made up of 100 beast clans. However, Luo and the others were also from the Fox Clan, so why weren't they recruited? Yi Xian didn't know the answer to this question, but he knew that the black-robed old man should be from the Five Poison Territory. The Five Poison Divine Sect can concoct poisons that can wipe out the soul. This is rather difficult to deal with, but I have the immortal Phoenix bloodline. I wonder if I can withstand this poison. Yi Xian thought in his heart. The black costume old man still had some Poison King powder in his universe ring. Yi Xian couldn't help but take it out and use his Wanxiang force to split some of it. It was even smaller than a drop of water. He touched was. Ding. The host has been poisoned. Detoxification in progress. As expected, with Yi Xian's current cultivation, he wasn't immune to the poison. Instantly, the poison passed through Yi Xian's skin and flowed up to his brain. Fortunately, Yi Xian had already broken through to the 8th level of the Samsara stage and possessed the bloodline of the immortal divine Phoenix. Coupled with the fact that the dosage of the Poison King powder was small, the Poison King powder was neutralized halfway through the climb. The poison was stored in the storage. Yi Xian tried it again. He was immune to it. Ding. The host is immune to the poison. The poison pill was made up of the 5 poisons, but Yi Xian was immune to it. He didn't need to be afraid of the poison pill anymore. Now that he had avenged the Samsara City Master, Yi Xian broke through the void and returned to the 100 Fox Mountain Manor in half a day. Senior, the land of Samsara is yours from now on, Yi Xian said to Hu Xing. Thank you so much. Hu Xing was very grateful. But her friend of many years, the Samsara City Master, was dead. She didn't even know where his body was. The Samsara City Master's body was probably in the Samsara Venerable's interspatial ring. But the Samsara Venerable broke the interspatial ring before he committed suicide. Everything in the interspatial ring must have fallen into the interspatial crack. Even Yi Xian, who had the Eye of Space, couldn't find it unless he broke through to the reaching heaven state. Young master, what are you going to do next? Luo suddenly asked. You can purify these faith crystals. It should be enough for you to break through to the 9th level of the Samsara realm. As for next, I will probably make a trip to the 100 Beasts region and see if I can find the ancestor of the fox tribe in the Lu Guang sacred land to help you suppress the heaven-loathing fox bloodline in your body. Yi Xian lovingly stroked Luo's hair. Although Luo had formed a master and servant blood contract with him, Yi Xian treated Luo like his own sister. Now that Luo was in danger, Yi Xian naturally had to take action. Moreover, with his current strength, he couldn't find a match in the land of Samsara. He had to go to a more powerful place. The 5 Poison Realm and the 100 Beasts region were good places to train. When he broke through to the Imperishable Realm, he would also raise Luo's level. At that time, the heaven-loathing fox bloodline might be suppressed. There was still half a year's time, so breaking through to the Imperishable Realm shouldn't be a problem. However, Yi Xian wasn't confident because the heaven-loathing fox bloodline was so strong that even immortal Tianju couldn't do anything. If immortal Tianju was at the Soul Imperishable Realm or the Heaven Ascension Realm, then Luo would probably have to reincarnate again. As for what happened next, Yi Xian didn't plan to let Luo follow him. He would just let her accompany Hu Xing. Young master, you have to be careful. Luo pursed her lips and said worriedly. No problem. When the time comes, we'll find your father too. Yi Xian said with a smile. Before this, he had asked Hu Xing for a portrait of Luo's father because he knew that the land of Samsara wouldn't be his final stage. Thank you, young master. Luo said obediently. Then, Yi Xian took out 2 drops of essence blood. He had gotten it from the 2 Imperishable Realm Heaven Ascension Beasts' corpses in the interspatial ring. It was the imperishable essence blood. Heaven Ascension Beasts were different from humans. After they died, their souls would dissipate, regardless of whether they had the imperishable essence blood or not. Therefore, their imperishable essence blood could only be used to heal injuries. However, their imperishable essence blood could be refined by humans. Hu Xing was heavily injured in order to protect Luo, so she probably couldn't break through to the imperishable realm. However, with these 2 drops of imperishable essence blood, she might be able to break through. Luo still has half a year before she turns 18. If I can't find Fox ancestor in this half a year, then I'll come back to help her reincarnate. Yi Xian said to Hu Xing. Within half a year, he would definitely be able to reach the imperishable realm, and even higher. At that time, his reincarnation ability would definitely be stronger than Hu Xing's. Perhaps he wouldn't need immortal Tianju's help. Okay. Hu Xing nodded. Then, she watched as Yi Xian broke through the void. After passing through the void, Yi Xian returned to Mount Eternal. This was the northern part of the land of Samsara. It was the closest to the 5 Poison Realm and 100 Beast region. Naturally, they had to start their journey from here. Chapter 1549. It won't be easy to reach the 100 Beast territory from the land of reincarnation. There's actually a 5 poison territory in between. Looks like we have to cross it. Yi Xian raised his eyebrows. Not to mention the 100 Beast territory, even the land of reincarnation was quite a distance away from the 5 poison territory. With his realm, it would take him months to travel at full speed. Fortunately, this map was more comprehensive. It even showed an abandoned ancient teleportation array that could directly teleport them to the edge of the 5 poison territory. However, this ancient teleportation array had been useless for a long time. If they wanted to use it, they had to repair it. It can be repaired. Although this teleportation array is big, it probably won't take long to repair. It's much better than traveling by myself, Yi Xian thought to himself. However, under normal circumstances, he would have a backup plan. Therefore he let the old tree, who had broken through to the Undying Realm, rush to the 5 poison territory while the Skeleton King and Wei Zhentian went out to hunt the heaven-reaching beasts. As for him, he would go to the ancient teleportation array. At that moment, they split into 3 groups and attacked from 3 different directions. After leaving the land of reincarnation in the north, Yi Xian went straight to the ancient teleportation array. It would take about 2 to 3 days. After 3 days, Yi Xian also arrived at the ancient teleportation array. This place was extremely desolate and had been abandoned for thousands of years. Yi Xian didn't say anything and rushed toward the teleportation palace. However, before he got close, he felt an aura. Undying Realm. However, this aura didn't come from a human, but from an undying realm heaven-reaching beast. Yi Xian wasn't afraid of this. After all, with his current cultivation, he could even kill a martial artist at the first level of the Undying Realm, let alone a Tong Tian beast at the first level of the Undying Realm. Yi Xian directly charged in. The heaven-reaching beast inside the teleportation palace felt Yi Xian's aura and immediately rushed out. This was a black leopard. Yi Xian didn't bother to distinguish what kind of heaven-reaching beast this black leopard was and directly attacked. Killing intent explosion. Void flame sword wave. The combination of this move and the Eye of Space was simply flawless. In just one move, the black leopard's head was blown apart by Yi Xian. After its soul dissipated, the black leopard's undying essence blood appeared. Yi Xian quickly went over and collected the drop of undying essence blood and the black leopard's corpse before devouring it. To him, swallowing the imperishable blood essence wouldn't bring him much benefit, but it could be used as a currency. He could also give it to his friends and family to help them break through to the imperishable realm. After dealing with the heavenly beast, Yi Xian arrived at the abandoned ancient teleportation array. As soon as he stepped in, the system beeped. Ding! The teleportation portal is 76% damaged. Estimated repair time is 3 days. Begin repair. Hearing this, Yi Xian answered in his mind without thinking, yes. It had only taken him 3 days to get here, so spending another 3 days was nothing. It should be known that if he had to travel by himself, it would take him at least a month to reach the 5 Poison Realm, let alone the 100 Beast Realm. There was a difference of more than 20 days between 6 days and a month, so spending some Super Devour crystals was nothing. Soon, another 3 days passed. Then, Yi Xian exchanged for some teleportation crystals and brought the old tree and the skeletal monarch over. Then, he directly activated the teleportation portal. Whoosh! The teleportation portal began to operate. 3 seconds later, Yi Xian felt the surrounding environment change. Even the heaven and earth yuan qi was much more abundant. The teleportation was successful. The destination was a teleportation palace. That ancient teleportation portal was two-way, so it was normal for the destination to be in the teleportation palace. Two-way teleportation portals could go back and forth. One-way teleportation portals could only go and not return. At this time, the teleportation portal under Yi Xian's feet was abandoned, so Yi Xian spent some time to repair it. After all, he was very far from the land of reincarnation. In 6 days, the old tree had not even completed half of the journey. It was impossible for him to break through the void and return. However, with this teleportation portal it was possible. Yi Xian did not need to be present to repair the teleportation portal, so Yi Xian let the old tree guard here and then left by himself. At this time, he was already at the edge of the 5 Poison Realm. In about half a day, he could enter the 5 Poison Realm. He had spent almost 7 days, so another half a day was nothing. After half a day, he entered the 5 Poison Realm. However, it was not that simple to cross from the 5 Poison Realm to the 100 Beast territory. Even if he used the teleportation portal continuously, it would probably take a few months. However, it was not that simple to use the teleportation portal continuously. Moreover, he had to have the ability to deal with the dangers along the way. Therefore, the most important thing for him now was to level up. The higher his realm, the faster he could travel, and it would be much safer. However, timing was better than early. When Yi Xian just entered the 5 Poison Realm, a team swept towards him. This team looked like they were humans. There were a total of 3 people, and they all seemed to be imperishable realm warriors. However, under Yi Xian's Eye of Revelation, their disguises could not be hidden. It turned out that these 3 were experts of the Snake Demon Clan who had just transformed into human forms. When Yi Xian saw the 3 of them, he could not help but frown because they seemed to be coming for him. "What are you doing?" Without waiting for the other party to approach, Yi Xian loudly roared. However, the 3 of them were not prepared to answer Yi Xian. Instead they sped up. "You're here with ill intentions. You're courting death." Yi Xian did not waste time and directly summoned Old Tree and the other 2 who had broken through to the Undying Realm. What? The 3 of them were shocked. They clearly only saw one person. Why did 2 people suddenly appear? One of them seemed to be the Skeleton King? However, they did not think too much. They directly took out their weapons and charged towards Yi Xian.
You're courting death.
Yi Xian's eyes shone brightly. At this moment, the three of them just happened to rush into his attack range.
Killing intent explosion.
Void flame sword wave.
Without saying a word, he directly attacked. This shapeless sword aura directly entered the spatial crack and then rushed out from behind one of them.
Bang!
This attack caught the other party off guard and killed one of them in an instant.
Ding! Host's killing intent has increased. Immediately, this unlucky guy's head was blown up, and then his soul floated out.
As for his corpse, it naturally fell from the sky.
What?
His companions were shocked. They did not expect Yi Xian to have the Eye of Space and to be able to kill their companions in an instant when he was only at the 8th level of the Samsara realm.
How was this possible?
Before they could recover from their shock, Old Tree and the Skeleton King both passed through the spatial crack and appeared behind them.
Residual flame. Chapter 1550.
Bang!
Hiss.
In the same level, the Old Tree and the Skeleton King were almost invincible. When the two of them joined forces, no one could stop them. The Old Tree blasted the head of one person with a punch, while the Skeleton King chopped off the head of the third person.
Ding! The host's killing intent has increased.
Although the indestructible body was strong, the Skeleton King's strength had skyrocketed after breaking through to the indestructible realm. It was extremely easy for him to chop off a head. The beheaded person was instantly separated from his body. Then, he was directly caught by the Skeleton King's big hand, and his face was filled with horror.
In just one move, 2 of the 3 people had died, leaving only a head. How was this possible?
As for his body and the other 2 people, because they had fallen, their bodies had turned into the original form of the Snake Demon clan, which was extremely ugly.
Then, Yi Xian quickly rushed over and took the 3 interspatial rings. Why did you attack me?
Yi Xian came to the last person and asked in surprise.
Attack. You were the one who attacked me first, okay? The third person wanted to cry but had no tears. However, at this time, he was Yi Xian's prisoner. If he did not answer, his head would probably explode in the next moment.
However, as an indestructible realm expert, as long as he had the indestructible blood essence, he could be resurrected.
So what if he died once? You don't want to talk? Look over there.
Yi Xian suddenly turned around and directly slashed out 2 swords.
Whoosh! Whoosh!
2 air-breaking sounds spread, but there was no trace of the attack because it was the Nihility Flame Sword Wave.
Bang!
Bang! However, the 2 Nihility Flame Sword Waves, after breaking through the air for a while, seemed to have hit something and suddenly exploded. The sound fell into the ears of the third person, which made him extremely shocked. This is... The third Snake Demon Clan warrior widened his eyes and suddenly had an ominous premonition in his heart.
I'll tell you clearly, I can see wandering souls and can also erase them. If you don't tell me honestly, you will end up like them. Yi Xian said coldly. What? You can see wandering souls?
This person was extremely shocked. After all, this was the first time he had heard of someone being able to see wandering souls.
However, looking at Yi Xian, it did not seem like he was lying.
Impossible.
How can you see it?
The demonic Snake Clan warrior questioned. If that's the case, then I'll do it myself.
Yi Xian widened his eyes and his gaze flickered.
Immortal Eye, Soul Eye.
After several advancements, the effects of his celestial eyes had greatly improved.
Furthermore, Yi Xian was already at the 8th level of the Samsara realm, which was only 2 levels lower than the demonic Snake Clan warrior. Therefore, it was not difficult for him to search the demonic Snake Clan warrior's soul. Of course, there was another method that was more convenient than soul searching. However, there were not as many things to understand as soul searching, and that was direct control.
No, I said.
The demonic Snake Clan warrior reacted immediately, but it was too late.
Yi Xian had already made up his mind. After all, he was new here and did not know anything.
Therefore, it was better to search the demonic Snake Clan warrior's soul.
This time, the soul searching took a full hour.
During this hour, the Old Tree and the Skeletal Sovereign were on guard outside. However, this action was unnecessary because no one came.
An hour later.
I see. They sense that I have no faith, so they came to forcibly increase it. However, the 5 Poison Divine cult has been lacking a large number of sacrifices recently, so they sent many people out and even left the 5 Poison realm?
Yi Xian immediately understood. However, there was a piece of information that caught Yi Xian's attention in the memories of the person in front of him. White bone gold concentrate. There was actually a vein of white bone gold concentrate in the vicinity. The white-boned gold essence jade was what the skeletal monarch needed to evolve into a ghost dome great emperor. The white-boned gold essence or could be refined into white-boned gold essence jade. Yi Xian had just entered the 5 poison realm and had not formulated a clear path to advance. Now he had one. Does this white bone gold concentrate vein belong to the city lord of Blackwater City? Yi Xian raised his eyebrows. It seemed that he had to move faster because this piece of information was half a year ago. In half a year, it might have been completely mined and used for forging. This was the edge of the 5 poison realm. Compared to Blackwater City, the white bone gold concentrate vein was closer. Immediately, Yi Xian blasted the demonic Snake Clan warrior's head with a sword and scattered his soul. After that, he headed towards the northeast. The white bone gold concentrate vein was about a day's journey in the northeast. During this journey, Yi Xian naturally did not stay idle. Just like before, he let the old tree and the skeletal sovereign kill the heaven-reaching beasts. Because it was only the edge of the 5 poison realm, there were still many Samsara realm heaven-reaching beasts. These heaven-reaching beasts were a piece of cake for the old tree and the skeletal sovereign. However, Yi Xian's human identity in the 5 poison realm was like a rat crossing the street. During this period of time, there was a lack of sacrificial offerings. Anyone who saw Yi Xian wanted to capture him. Unfortunately, Yi Xian was not as simple as an 8th-level Samsara realm warrior. His strength was unprecedented. Not to mention a Samsara realm warrior, even an imperishable realm warrior would not be able to escape death if they encountered him. A day later, Yi Xian arrived at the white bone gold concentrate vein. He looked from afar and saw several people guarding it. These guards were all in the imperishable realm, and they were all from the Demon Spider Clan. The Demon Spider Clan looked no different from humans. However, they had sharp spider legs on their backs. During battle, they would suddenly extend and stab the enemy. It was impossible to guard against. Yi Xian carefully observed. There were 5 guards at the entrance, including those patrolling nearby. However, he did not know how many people were inside. However, just as Yi Xian was about to attack, a person suddenly walked out from inside. Imperishable Realm 2nd level physical body. That's right. How can such an important vein be guarded by only a few Imperishable Realm 1st level physical body experts? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and made a plan in his heart. The old tree and the skeletal sovereign could deal with an Imperishable Realm 2nd level physical body expert. If he killed these people, he would probably be able to break through to the 9th level Samsara realm. At that time, the old tree and the other 2 would probably be able to break through to the Imperishable Realm 2nd level. Most importantly, the skeletal sovereign might be able to mutate into the Ghost Dome Great Emperor. Then, there would definitely be a qualitative leap. Ribbone, later on, you will hold back the Imperishable Realm 2nd level guard. The old tree and I will deal with the remaining 5. Yi Xian ordered the 2 of them. All right. The old tree nodded in response. Although this was the plan, Yi Xian still decided to lure 1 or 2 people out. As for the bait, he was naturally going to be the one. The 5 poison domain was the domain of the 5 poison divine sect. Humans without faith were like rats crossing the street. Furthermore, he was an 8th level Samsara realm martial artist. Naturally, no one would take him seriously. Chapter 1551. A human? When the 2 guards saw Yi Xian, they couldn't help but raise their eyebrows. I'll go, I happen to have a faith crystal. A long-haired Demon Spider Clan warrior finished speaking and rushed directly toward Yi Xian. Seeing this, Yi Xian pretended to be shocked and quickly turned around to leave. His speed shocked the long-haired warrior, but the other party didn't think much of it. He just thought that Yi Xian was fast. After all, the difference in realm was obvious. The 2 of them ran for nearly 10 seconds before the long-haired martial artist couldn't take it anymore. He shouted angrily, "Kids, stop right there!" Rip! Before his voice fell, the long-haired warrior's back was suddenly torn apart. 8 spear-like spider legs quickly extended and directly blocked Yi Xian's path. But at the same time, Yi Xian also directly made his move. Killing intent explosion. Nihility flame sword wave. A space crack opened, and an invisible sword chi swept in and protruded from the back of the long-haired warrior's head. Pang! The long-haired warrior's head directly exploded, and he was instantly killed. Ding! The host's killing intent value has increased. When the system notification sounded, Yi Xian had already obtained the interspatial ring of this person. After swallowing all the things inside, he quickly turned back. At the same time, his appearance also changed. This kind of method of seduction, as long as he changed his face and came out from another direction, the other party should not think that it was the same person. Soon, Yi Xian used the same method to lure another person out. Ding! The host's killing intent value has increased. There were originally 5 guards, but now there were only 3 left, and the guard captain with the undying second realm body also re-entered the mine, as if he didn't know what was happening outside. Since that was the case, then Yi Xian could directly start killing. Yi Xian's eyes flashed and rushed out again. This time, he didn't intend to use the method of seduction. Seeing this, the 3 guards raised their eyebrows. One of the experts saw that Yi Xian looked very unfamiliar and couldn't help but ask, why did 3 8th-level Samsara realm humans suddenly barge in? As he spoke, he directly took out a faith crystal and prepared to let Yi Xian forcefully consume it to believe in their heavenly spider god. However, before he could get close, Yi Xian suddenly attacked. Killing intent explosion. Nihility flame sword wave. The same move used on different people. The effect was very obvious. In an instant, the guard was killed. At the same time, the Skeleton King and the Skeleton King appeared. Enemy attack. One of them reacted very quickly. After his comrade's head exploded, he quickly shouted out, "Brother Lu!" His voice resounded throughout the sky to the mine. When the guard captain heard this, his body trembled, and he immediately rushed out to kill. However, by the time he came out, the 2 people guarding outside had already been killed one after another. Ding! Host's killing intent has increased. Ding! Host's killing intent has increased. When the 2 system notifications sounded, the old tree and the Skeleton King had already returned to Yi Xian with the interspatial ring. Tragedy. Just a little more. After Yi Xian swallowed all the things in the interspatial ring, he couldn't help but show a helpless look. However, Wei Zhentian and the Skeleton King were the first to break through. Ding! Wei Zhentian has broken through. His current physical body is at 2nd level undying physical body. Ding! The Skeleton King has broken through. His current physical body is at 2nd level undying physical body. 2 2nd level undying physical body cultivators were definitely enough to deal with the guard captain. Who are you? The guard captain looked at the corpse of his subordinate and asked with a frown. Human. Yi Xian replied slowly. Hearing this answer, the guard captain's face turned cold and he continued, "How dare you rob the mine?" "So what?" Yi Xian raised his eyebrows. "Today is the last batch of the white bone gold concentrate. You really know how to pick the time," the guard captain said and directly took out a long sword from the interspatial ring. At the same time, his back was torn open and 8 sharp spider legs stretched out. "Ribs, you and I deal with him. Old tree, you go in and check if there are other people." Yi Xian looked at the guard captain and gave the order to the 2 in his heart. However, as soon as his voice fell, the guard captain moved. Whoosh! The guard captain ran wildly on the ground and accelerated with the 8 spider legs behind him. His speed was so fast that he could fly. "You have some ability." Yi Xian squinted his eyes. The Skeleton King, who had broken through to 2nd level undying physical body, took the lead and held the heaven-shaking sword to meet the guard captain. Clang! The heaven-shaking sword was waved and collided with the guard captain's long sword. However, at the same time, the guard captain's 8 spider legs directly broke the Skeleton King's rock armor defense. After breaking through to the undying physical body, the Skeleton King's defense rose sharply, but the guard captain was able to break it. He had some ability. While the Skeleton King and the guard captain were fighting, Old Tree took the lead and rushed into the mine. As for Yi Xian, he directly attacked as well. Killing intent explosion. Nihility flame sword wave. Although the guard captain in front of him was an expert of 2nd level undying physical body, the sneak attack of the space eye was not so easy to avoid. In an instant, the guard captain heard a whistling wind behind him. He was so scared that he hurriedly controlled the 8 spider legs to defend. Crack! A few crisp sounds were heard. The guard captain's 6 spider legs were directly cut off by the Nihility Flame Sword Wave. Without these spider legs, the back of his head would definitely be smashed into pieces. Even if he did not die, he would be seriously injured. Then came the attack of the Skeleton King. Bang! Another muffled sound was heard. This time, the guard captain blocked the attack with the long sword in his hand again. However, the Skeleton King's powerful strength directly shook his arm. Under the same situation, the guard captain could hold on for a few rounds, which was considered good. After all, he was an expert of the second-level undying physical body. He was considered to be at the peak of the second-level undying physical body. Of course, the reason why he could withstand 2 moves of the Skeleton King was mainly because of the long sword in his hand. This was an 8th-order weapon made of white bone gold concentrate. It was indestructible. But then, this weapon would belong to Yi Xian. Thinking that he was about to mutate, the Skeleton King's fighting spirit soared. He looked at the guard captain's body that was flying backward and directly stretched out his left hand to grab the void. Grip of the underworld. The guard captain who was flying backward was caught again. However, at this time, his expression was not very good because he was controlled by the enemy. He could not leave even if he wanted to. His next fate would be very miserable. Chapter 1552. Unfortunately, the Skeletal King was like a statue. He took the attacks without batting an eyelid. The guard captain's hunch was right. The Skeletal King's grasp of the underworld had never failed against a cultivator of the same level. Moreover, Yi Xian, who had the eye of space, was watching from a distance. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. When the guard captain flew closer, the Skeletal King slashed at him. At the same time, Yi Xian attacked again. However, this time, he did not use a spatial crack. Instead, he attacked directly. Clang! Bang! The back of the guard captain's head suddenly exploded. The flames formed by the unicorn's vital energy instantly spread to the entire head and burned it to ashes. Ding! Host's killing intent has increased. The system notification sounded. At that moment, Yi Xian quickly rushed over and took the universe ring. Ding! Host has broken through. Host is currently at the 9th level of the Samsara realm. Ding! Spirit of Ashes has broken through. Host is currently at the 2nd level of the undying physical body realm. There were many things in the interspatial ring, which allowed Yi Xian to break through. At the same time, there was an ore that looked like a bone. This was the purpose of Yi Xian's trip, the white bone gold concentrate. Unfortunately, there were not many of them. It was impossible to find the white bone gold concentrate. Roar! The Skeletal King was a little impatient and asked about the situation. Not enough. Yi Xian shook his head and said to the Skeletal King, "Don't worry, there are more inside." At this moment, the old tree happened to reply. There are many Samsara realm miners inside, about 500 of them. However, after sensing my aura, they are very obedient. Other than that, I don't see anyone at the Undying realm. He was currently at the 2nd level of the Undying physical body realm. Although the miners inside had faith, they were only at the Samsara realm. Naturally, they did not dare to cause trouble. Hearing this, Yi Xian nodded slightly and replied, "Ask how long it will take to mine 100 pieces of white bone gold concentrate? It will take about a day. However, this mineral vein will only last for half a day." The old tree replied, "Even if we finish mining this mineral vein, we won't be able to find any more white bone gold concentrate." Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Those 100 pieces of white bone gold essence were the amount he needed right now. It seemed that even if they mined this mineral vein, they would not be able to find a single white bone gold concentrate. However, he could still afford to wait for a day. What's more, Old Shu, Skeleton King and Wei Zhentian, who had reached the 2nd level of the Undying Physique realm, would be there to collect the mineral veins. As Yi was Yi Xian level realm, the old tree king that was. With the help of Old Shu and the other two, they finished gathering in less than half a day. There were exactly 60 pieces of white bone gold essence ores. However, including the ones that Yi Xian obtained from the guard captain's ring, they were still around 40 pieces away from the white bone gold essence jade. Roar! The Skeletal King let out a displeased roar. "Don't worry. Let's go directly to Blackwater City. They have been mining for half a year. There must be a lot of them." Yi Xian patted the Skeletal King's shoulder armor and comforted it. However, just as they were about to go to Blackwater City, A team suddenly swept across the sky. There were only 3 people, all of whom were from the Demon Spider clan. This aura, they are all experts of the 2nd level of the undying physical body realm. Yi Xian raised his eyebrows. It seemed that his luck was good. The armors worn by these 3 people were the same as those who guarded the white bone gold concentrate. They should be from Blackwater City. Since they were from Blackwater City, there might be white bone gold concentrate in their interspatial rings. In that case, the Skeletal King might be able to mutate on the spot. Even if there was no white bone gold concentrate, these people's weapons might be mixed with white bone gold concentrate. As long as Yi Xian got these weapons, he could use them to break them down. Who are you? After seeing Yi Xian, the leading warrior could not help but ask. Nothing, we just robbed this mineral vein. Yi Xian's lips curled slightly as he replied. Rob. You're courting death. When the 3 heard this, their eyes immediately burst out with light. In this place, they dared to rob the city lord of Blackwater City. They were really courting death. However, the 3 also felt that the aura of the old tree and the Skeletal King was not weaker than theirs, so they had to be careful. Go. As the leader let out a low shout, the 3 of them charged towards Yi Xian. At the same time, the old tree and the Skeletal King also chose their opponents. As for the last person, it was naturally left to Yi Xian. Yi Xian and the other 2 people watched the other party approach. When the other party entered their attack range, they attacked one after another. Killing intent explosion. Nihility flame sword wave. Without saying a word, Yi Xian directly split open a spatial crack, and an invisible sword chi slashed in. Not only that, the old tree and the Skeletal King also rushed in and arrived behind the 3 people. Pang! Pang! Hiss! In just one exchange, the 3 people directly fell. 2 people's heads exploded, and 1 person's head was cut off. Instant kill. Moreover, it was a triple kill. The last person who had his head cut off did not die. He looked at his own corpse in the air, and then looked at the motionless Yi Xian in the distance. He was stunned. The 3 of them were all in the undying 2nd realm and were experts in Blackwater City. Today, they came by to check on the mining situation, but unexpectedly, they were instantly killed. You are. Just as this person opened his mouth, Old Tree punched the back of his head, and then it exploded. Dead. These 3 people caused Yi Xian to be shocked. Amongst the 3 of them, only the one who had just died had undying blood essence. The souls of the other 2 had already dissipated from the world when their heads were blown apart. Therefore, only this 3rd person could be resurrected. Of course, in theory he could be resurrected, but Yi Xian would not let him go so easily. Nihility flame sword wave. Another invisible sword chi slashed out and hit the 3rd person's stunned soul. Suddenly, his soul felt a heart-wrenching pain, and then it was burned to ashes. The system was kind. When an undying realm expert died, Yi Xian would receive a killing intent value. Therefore, whether these people had undying blood essence or not did not have much to do with him. The reason why he killed the enemy's soul was that killing the enemy's body would only give him killing intent value. The elegy of souls would not increase. Only by destroying the enemy's soul would the elegy of souls increase. After the 3 people died, Yi Xian quickly came to the old tree through the spatial crack, took the 3 people's interspatial rings, and then checked them. Chapter 1553. The 3rd person had the indestructible blood essence, so he could be resurrected. Therefore, he had the least amount of things in his Qian Kuan ring. After all, if he fell, he could still rise again. The weapons of the 3 people were also mixed with white bone gold concentrate. Yi Xian threw their weapons and began to decompose them. Ding! Decomposing successful. Ding! Decomposing successful. Ding! Decomposing successful. After 3 successful decomposing system prompts, Yi Xian obtained more than 20 pieces of white bone gold concentrate. Just a little more. It seems that we have to make a trip to Blackwater City. Yi Xian said slowly. Roar. When the Skeleton King heard this, its fighting spirit soared. Yi Xian understood the Skeleton King's mood. After all, if the Skeleton King mutated, he would benefit the most. At that time, the Skeleton King would mutate into the Ghost Dome Great Emperor, and its fighting strength would definitely increase by several times. Let's go. Thinking of this, Yi Xian was a little impatient and began to hurry. This mineral vein was not far from Blackwater City, and they could reach it in a day's journey. During this day, Yi Xian followed the previous plan, One person hurried while the other two killed. Soon, a day had passed. A day later, Yi Xian arrived at Blackwater City, and it happened to be night at this time. However, because of his human identity, he did not go in yet. Young master, this Blackwater City has a strong background. Should we attack directly or sneak in? Old Tree said to Yi Xian. With our strength, even if we fight directly, we are not afraid. There is no need to sneak in. Yi Xian replied. Good. Old Tree's eyes lit up. He also liked this method of fighting directly with the enemy. As for the Skeleton King, it was naturally the same. Let's go. Since it was decided, Yi Xian walked directly from the darkness towards the city gate. The 5 Poison territory was mainly controlled by 5 beast clans. There were all kinds of people in this Blackwater City: the Demon Spider Clan, the Wind Centipede Clan, the Golden Toad Clan, the Demonic Snake Clan, and the Black Scorpion Clan. It was said that the City Lord of Blackwater City was a member of the Demon Spider Clan, and it was said that his background was not small. He was once a disciple of the Sky Spider sect. The Sky Spider sect was one of the 5 Poison Divine sects. A disciple of the Sky Spider sect was definitely not weak. If it was an ordinary person, even if their realm was high, they would not dare to directly attack the city, because the people in the 5 Poison realm were all experts in using poison. If they were not careful and got hit by the soul poison, then that would be a tragedy. However, Yi Xian and the others were not afraid. Yi Xian was immune to poison, and the Old Tree and the Skeletal Monarch could be revived without limit. It was just a soul poison, so what was the big deal? When Yi Xian walked towards the city gate, the team guarding the city gate discovered them. However, because of the distance, these Demon Spider Clan people could not sense whether Yi Xian had a religion. Moreover, it was possible that he was an incarnation of the Demonic Snake Clan. When Yi Xian and the others approached, their expressions changed slightly. In human form, and without a religion, this was definitely not the Demonic Snake Clan, but a human. The City Lord has recently sent out a large number of experts to capture sacrifices. I didn't expect one to come to us. Zhu Lai, this time it's your turn. The captain of the city guard said to a city guard. Those who could capture sacrifices would be rewarded, but there were not many humans who could come to Blackwater City, so this group of city guards took turns. When the warrior named Zhu Lai heard this, his eyes could not help but light up. It was finally his turn. It was not easy. The reward of a 9th level Samsara realm sacrifice was not bad. This was another source of income. The others also revealed envious expressions, but they would never have thought that Zhu Lai would be so unlucky this time. This was because the human youth who walked towards the city gate, seemingly unaware of anything, was Yi Xian. At this moment, Zhu Lai had already swept towards Yi Xian with a sly smile on his face. He had an Undying Realm 1st level physical body, and Yi Xian was only at the 9th level Samsara realm. His strength was absolutely overwhelming. Kid, you probably don't know the current situation of the 5 Poison realm. Consider yourself unlucky. Zhu Lai chuckled. He grabbed Yi Xian's throat with one hand, and prepared a faith crystal in his other hand. He was ready to force Yi Xian to worship their Sky Spider God. However, at this moment, an extremely powerful killing intent suddenly surged out of Yi Xian's body. When Zhu Lai was in front of him, he suddenly stabbed out with his sword. Nihility Flame Sword Ripple. The sword directly blasted Zhu Lai's head apart, sending flesh and blood flying everywhere. In front of Yi Xian, the undying body of the 1st level Undying Realm was easily destroyed by Yi Xian like tofu. Ding! Host's killing intent has increased. A system notification rang in Yi Xian's mind. In the next moment, he had already taken Zhu Lai's Yin and Yang ring. Zhu Lai could be considered unlucky because he did not have a single drop of Undying Essence blood. Now that he was dead, he was truly dead. When the group at the city gate saw Zhu Lai's corpse, they could not help but be stunned. In the next moment, the remaining 9 city guards all rushed over. Bastard! How dare you kill someone? You're courting death. Everyone, be careful. This person has an attack that can break through the undying body. This person must have been sent by the 100 Beast territory. Capture him and hand him over to the city lord. Amidst numerous explosive shouts, Yi Xian was directly besieged. The captain of the city guards was an expert of the 2nd level Undying Realm. He also expressed his doubts about Zhu Lai's death, but the latter had died in front of him, so it was the truth. However, since his 9 team members had already attacked, there was no need for him to do so. In his opinion, Yi Xian had only killed Zhu Lai with a sneak attack. Now that he was facing 9 experts of the first-level Undying Realm, it would be difficult for Yi Xian not to die. However, he soon realized that he was too naive. Fortunately, he did not kill his way out. Otherwise, his intestines would have turned green with regret. His 9 team members of the first-level Undying Realm had all died within 2 seconds. And the one who killed them was not Yi Xian alone. There were 2 others. One was a bald old man, and the other was a brawny man wearing armor. No, that was the Skeleton Monarch. Second-level Undying Realm? The captain of the city guards immediately reacted. He immediately turned around and shouted, "Close the city gate, there's an attack." His reaction was very fast, but unfortunately, Old Tree was faster and blocked him before he could rush into the city gate. At the same time, the Skeleton Monarch had already scuttled to the other side of the city wall passageway. He directly used his hands to block the heavy city gate that was closed. Blackwater City had 2 city gates surrounded by formations. Once the 2 city gates were closed, it would not be so easy to enter. "Captain." There was a small team of 5 on the other side of the city gate. They immediately closed the city gate when they heard the sound, but they saw a giant object stuck between the city gates. Chapter 1554. Quick, inform the city lord that someone is attacking the city. With this shout, the entire city was in an uproar. Blackwater City had not been besieged for many years. Today it finally happened. Hearing this, the residents of Blackwater City first hid far away, then began to guess. Last time, it was the 100 Beast region who attacked the city. Could it be the same this time? While the shout was still echoing in the sky, Old Tree had already rushed in with the help of the Skeleton King's analysis. Meanwhile, Yi Xian kept the universe ring of the city guard captain outside the city gate. Then, he directly used the Void special positioning system and the Eye of the Void to enter Blackwater City. At this moment, he had gathered enough materials, which was the white bone gold concentrate. Ding! White bone gold concentrate successful. A system notification sounded. Yi Xian couldn't help but smile. Finally it was time. Ding! The Skeleton King can undergo mutation. Do you agree? Hearing this, Yi Xian naturally wouldn't refuse and immediately chose to agree. Ding! The Skeleton King has begun to mutate. Current mutation rate is 1%. Ding! The Skeleton King has begun to mutate. Current mutation rate is 2%. Ding! The Skeleton King has begun to mutate. Current mutation rate is 3%. Yi Xian thought that the mutation would be completed in an instant. He didn't expect there to be a progress bar. However, this didn't matter. After all, the mutation speed was quite fast. However, what made him helpless was that the Skeleton King couldn't move during the mutation, so Yi Xian put it into the plant space. Then the next battle would be between him, Old Tree, and Wei Zhentian. The news spread quickly. There were many city guards patrolling nearby. When they heard that someone was attacking the city, they immediately rushed to the city gate. These city guards were all Undying Realm martial artists. They didn't have a captain. In Yi Xian's field of vision, there were a total of 15 people in 3 groups. 15 Undying Realm martial artists. Even Wei Zhentian could deal with them, let alone Old Tree and Yi Xian. Kill! Yi Xian did not waste any more time as he gave orders to Old Tree and Megatron. By the time these 3 groups of city guards arrived, the 5 people guarding this side of the city gate had already been taken care of. Following that, Yi Xian and the other 2 took care of 1 group of city guards each. In terms of killing speed, the Old Tree was naturally the fastest. After all, he was already at the 2nd level of the Undying Corporeal Body. Although Yi Xian was at the 9th level of the Samsara Realm, his speed was not much slower than his. As for Wei Zhentian, he was temporarily ranked 3rd due to his lack of ability. Old Tree only used 2 seconds to deal with a group of city guards. Yi Xian used more than 3 seconds, and Wei Zhentian used around 5 seconds. Following that, the Old Tree and Wei Zhentian came over with the spoils of war. As for the souls of those people, Yi Xian also used the Void Flame Sword Wave from afar to harvest them. Yi Xian devoured everything and glanced at the interface at the same time. 5 seconds had passed, but the Skeletal King's progress bar had only increased by 20%. It seemed like it would take some time before it mutated. Although the city lord was obligated to deal with the siege, there were still many forces in Blackwater City. After hearing the news, they immediately rushed over. At this moment, 3 people with slightly stronger auras appeared in Yi Xian's field of vision.
One of them was from the Black Scorpion tribe, and all 3 of them were at the 2nd level of the undying corporeal body.
Yi Xian had already killed such a group once, just outside the White Bone Gold Essence Mine. Although the Skeletal King was not here this time. So what? Brat, how dare you attack the city? Prepare to die. The Scorpion tribe elder shouted and was the first to arrive. However, before he could finish his sentence, Old Tree appeared behind him in a flash and punched him. At the same time, Yi Xian also slashed out a void flame sword wave. Their cooperation was perfect. In an instant, the Scorpion tribe elder was killed and his soul left his body. What? The other 2 experts were shocked. After exchanging a glance, they approached each other. If one of them was killed in an instant, it would be useless even if the 2 of them worked together. Old Tree could deal with one by himself, and Yi Xian and Wei Zhentian could also deal with the other within 5 rounds. However, Yi Xian's face didn't turn gloomy because of the 2 experts. Instead, it was because of the figure in the sky. According to the speed of this person, he should be an expert at the 3rd level of the undying corporeal body realm. I must end this quickly, Yi Xian thought in his heart. He directly used the Eye of Space and caught the person in front of him off guard. Originally, he calculated that he and Wei Zhentian could deal with the other party in 5 rounds. However, after using the Eye of Space, it would take at most 2 rounds. Bang! The void flame sword wave was successful again. The person in front of him was heavily injured at the back of his head. Then, he was hit by Wei Zhentian's dragon tail and instantly exploded. Dead. On the other side, Old Tree was still fighting with his opponent. However, with the addition of Yi Xian and Wei Zhentian, he also killed his opponent in 3 rounds. I'm going to break through soon. After Yi Xian obtained the 3 universe rings, his mind slightly focused.
It seemed that after dealing with the 3rd level of the undying corporeal body realm expert, he would be able to break through to the undying corporeal body realm.
When this person rushed over, the Skeleton King's mutation progress had already reached 60%. It seemed that Yi Xian still had to deal with it himself.
Brat, you dare to cause trouble in Blackwater City.
You have guts. Prepare to die. The 3rd level of the undying corporeal body realm expert didn't intend to talk nonsense and directly attacked. The Skeleton King was still transforming, so this person could only be dealt with by Yi Xian and the others. Fortunately, Old Tree and Wei Zhentian were both in the 2nd level of the undying corporeal body realm, so it wasn't a problem for them to delay him. In addition to Yi Xian, it was still possible to kill him. However, Yi Xian didn't want to participate in this battle because he estimated that the people from the City Lord's mansion would arrive soon. He had to investigate. It was said that the City Lord of Blackwater City was at the peak of the 4th level of the undying corporeal body realm. If he came, Yi Xian probably wouldn't be able to withstand one move. In an instant, Old Tree and Wei Zhentian were already fighting with the 3rd level of the undying corporeal body realm expert. Yi Xian was observing the battle while paying attention to the battle, preparing to use the Eye of Space to launch a sneak attack. However, this person had already noticed that he had the Eye of Space. It wouldn't be so easy to launch a sneak attack. Ding! The Skeleton King has begun to transform. Current transformation is 65%. Ding! The Skeleton King has begun to transform. Current transformation is 70%. The Skeleton King's transformation was still ongoing. If he was given another 7 or 8 seconds, the transformation would be successful. Seeing this, Yi Xian, who originally wanted to join the battle, suddenly stopped. He felt that the Skeleton King would definitely want to have a great battle after its mutation.
The martial artist in front of him, who was at the 3rd level of the Undying Realm, was perfect for the Skeleton King.
Chapter 1555. Ding! Skeletal King is mutating. Current mutation rate is at 85%. Ding! Skeletal King is mutating. Current mutation rate is at 90%. Time passed by slowly. There were only 3 seconds left before the Skeletal King's mutation would succeed. Yi Xian gripped his sword tightly. He was a little excited. The Skeletal King was already so powerful before it mutated. How powerful would it be after it mutated? Ding! Skeletal King is mutating. Current mutation rate is at 95%. Ding! Skeletal King is mutating. Current mutation rate is at 100%. Ding. Skeletal King's mutation is complete. Ding. Skeletal King has become the Ghost Dome Emperor. Finally, the mutation was complete. From now on, the Skeletal King would no longer be called Skeletal King but the Ghost Dome Emperor. Hearing this, Yi Xian subconsciously glanced at the Skeletal King's interface. Other than the name change, even the skills had changed. The Undying War Soul originally doubled all attributes. After the Skeletal King mutated into the Ghost Dome Emperor, it doubled. Moreover, Wei Zhentian also had an effect when fused. The grip of the underworld was changed to consume 1% of the soul water from the Elegy of Souls. Not only was the tearing force stronger, but there was also no cooldown. After fusing with Wei Zhentian, his sky-shattering meteor slash did not change much. Neither did Death Gaze or Death Will. However, the Elegy of Souls and Evil's Descent shocked Yi Xian. Evil's Descent's original effect was to increase Yi Xian's combat power. However, it now connected with Wei Zhentian. From now on, the Skeletal King did not need to fight with the heaven-shaking sword to be considered fused. As long as Wei Zhentian had the buff from Evil's Descent, he and the Skeletal King would be considered fused. In simple terms, the two could fight separately but enjoy the double buff from fusing. As for the Elegy of Souls, it was even more powerful. Originally, the Elegy of Souls was only effective on the Skeletal King. Now it could be used on Yi Xian, the Old Tree, and Wei Zhentian. Moreover, the buff had doubled. After the Skeleton Emperor's mutation was completed, Yi Xian, Old Shu, Wei Zhentian, and even Luo Luo, who was far away in the land of reincarnation, increased their strength by 20%. This was because the increase from the Elegy of Souls was 20%. Haha, it's too powerful. I didn't take in the wrong person. Yi Xian couldn't help but grin. He had to admit that the one devour point he spent that day was really worth it. Although the skeletal monarch's body was still at the second layer of the Undying Realm after his transformation, his strength had probably increased by several folds. Especially that Evil Descends, it actually allowed the skeletal monarch and Wei Zhentian to fight separately. Moreover, they could be considered to be in a combined state, which was very good. However, before Yi Xian could recover from his surprise, the system notification sounded again. Ding! Wei Zhentian has mutated into the Great Earth Monarch. After hearing the system notification, Yi Xian couldn't help but be stunned. He subconsciously glanced at Wei Zhentian's interface and discovered that Wei Zhentian had also undergone a change. The Great Earth Monarch had mutated into the Great Earth Monarch. Although it didn't seem like much of a change, Wei Zhentian's battle strength had undergone a qualitative increase. Most importantly, the 1,000 sword blade storm state had advanced to the 10,000 sword state. Good, this is really good news. This time, Wei Zhentian's transformation was out of his expectations. No matter what, he had to let the battle end first. After the transformation, Wei Zhentian didn't seem to have much of a change, but his strength had increased by a lot. Originally, he and the Old Tree were fighting evenly against each other, but now, they instantly gained the upper hand. Skeletal Monarch, no. Ghost Dome Emperor, go. Yi Xian's eyes flickered as he summoned the Ghost Dome Emperor from the planting space. After the transformation, the Skeletal Monarch had become much more handsome. Its rock armor was even more lustrous, and there were 8 thick bones in front of its chest. One look and one could tell that its defense had increased by a lot. Not only that, the Ghost Dome Emperor actually had a Ghost Dome Greatsword. If Wei Zhentian also transformed into a sky-shaking greatsword, he would have 2 of them. There was no need to mention how handsome the Ghost Dome Emperor looked when he was fighting with 2 great swords. Now that the Ghost Dome Emperor had completed his transformation, his battle intent had soared to the limit. His pair of ghost fire eyes swept over and landed on the 3rd layer Undying Physique Realm Martial Artist. Pang! He stomped his feet and rushed out in an instant. This speed was something that even Yi Xian couldn't compare to. Now, due to the effect of Evil's Descent, the Ghost Dome Emperor and Wei Zhentian were considered to be in a merged state within a certain distance. Therefore, when they got closer, the Ghost Dome Emperor and Wei Zhentian's attributes had increased by more than 2 times. What? When the 3rd layer Undying Physique Realm Martial Artist saw the domineering Ghost Dome Emperor, he was so frightened that his body trembled. Before he could react, the Ghost Dome Emperor had already flashed in front of him and waved his hands fiercely. The Ghost Dome Greatsword swept out and directly slapped the third-layer Undying Physique Realm martial artist's face. Instantly, the head of the third-layer Undying Physique Realm martial artist exploded. Pang! Ding! Host's killing intent has increased. In the distance, Yi Xian directly heard the system notification. Gulp. When Yi Xian saw this scene, he couldn't help but gulp a mouthful of saliva. The mutated rib bones was indeed powerful. He actually killed a third-layer Undying Physique Realm martial artist in an instant. Amazing. However, the dead person seemed to have undying blood essence. After the head exploded, the soul floated out. At that moment, Yi Xian casually slashed out a void flame sword ripple and destroyed the soul. The Elegy of Souls absorbed the soul. Yi Xian glanced at it and realized that it had increased by a lot. However, it was still insufficient for the current Ghost Dome Emperor. A Death's Gaze required a 5% increase, and a Grasp of the Underworld required a 1% increase. How many people would he have to kill? However, Yi Xian didn't care so much. He directly rushed over and took the interspatial ring. Ding! Host has reached the peak of the 9th level Samsara realm. The system notification sounded. The requirement to break through to the Undying realm was 200 drops of Undying blood essence. This wasn't difficult for Yi Xian. After all, he had killed many Undying Realm heaven-connecting beasts previously. Ding! Host has broken through. Host is currently at the first layer Undying Physique Realm. Ding! Wei Zhentian has broken through. Host is currently at the third layer Undying Physique Realm. Ding! Ghost Dome Emperor has broken through. Host is currently at the third layer Undying Physique Realm. Ding! Ash's Spirit has broken through. Host is currently at the third layer Undying Physique Realm. 4 consecutive system notifications sounded. Now, Yi Xian had finally broken through to the Undying Realm. After the breakthrough, besides the increase of his lifespan to 20,000 years, Yi Xian also felt that his body had undergone a tremendous change. His body was at least 5 times stronger. Immediately, he slashed open his own arm, and blood immediately flowed out. Chapter 1556. However, Yi Xian, who had the Immortal Phoenix bloodline, healed the wound in the blink of an eye. The Immortal Phoenix bloodline was indeed powerful. Right, I have the Eye of Eternity. My weak point should still be my eyes, right? Yi Xian suddenly thought of this. For an Immortal Physique powerhouse, the brain was the weak point. However, he had the Eye of Eternity and the system did not prompt, so it should still be his eyes. However, this kind of thing could be discussed later. Now that their strength had undergone earth-shattering changes, it would be unreasonable if they did not directly attack the City Lord Manor. Let's go and kill to our heart's content. Yi Xian's lips curled up slightly as he led Old Tree and the other two towards the City Lord Manor. Now that Wei Zhentian and Ghost Dome Great Emperor had a strange connection, as long as they were nearby, they would merge. From this point of view, their combined battle strength would be at least 3 times higher than before. Even an Immortal Physique 5th Realm powerhouse would not be able to defeat them. This Blackwater City's City Lord was only at the peak of the Immortal Physique 4th Realm. This meant that Yi Xian was a little unbridled. Along the way, there were many people who joined forces to attack Yi Xian. Although their realms were low, only at the Immortal Physique 1st Realm, they had the advantage in numbers. Unfortunately, Yi Xian and the rest were not afraid at all. Those who dared to block the way all died without a burial place. This was also a good thing for Yi Xian. After all, this was all experience. It could not only increase his cultivation, but also increase his killing intent and requiem of souls. Now that the 5 Poison Realm was lacking sacrificial offerings, most of the forces took this opportunity to attack the surrounding forces. Although 99% of the people in the 5 Poison Realm had faith, they did not want to be sacrificial offerings. If a strong force destroyed a weak force, then the weak force would be the sacrificial offering. Simply speaking, Yi Xian did not have many experts in the Blackwater City's City Lord Manor this time, but the City Lord was definitely there. After this, Blackwater City's City Lord Manor sent out an Immortal Physique 3rd Realm expert. There was no movement. Only when Yi Xian and the rest arrived did they feel strange. What happened? The people in the City Lord's Manor couldn't figure out the situation. How could there be an unfamiliar 3rd stage Undying Realm expert near the City Lord's Manor? When they came out to take a look, they saw a human youth carrying a corpse in his hand. That's the corpse of Consecrator Lien. Those with discerning eyes immediately reacted. Consecrator Lien was the expert whose brain had been smashed by Ghost Dome Great Emperor. His body was at the undying stage 3. How did he die? What's going on? Didn't Consecrator Lien go to deal with the siege? It seems that Consecrator Lien has died in battle. This person doesn't seem to have a good background. He is only at the first level of the undying fleshly body realm, but he has 2 guards at the 3rd level of the undying fleshly body realm. No matter what, kill him. Immediately, many experts leaped into the sky from the City Lord Mansion. There were more than 20 undying 2nd layer experts and 5 undying 3rd layer experts. This kind of arrangement was enough to deal with a 4th stage undying fleshly body expert. However, this was still not enough. The City Lord of Blackwater City doesn't seem to be here, but there are many arrays in the City Lord's manor. Maybe he's in seclusion. In that case, I'll kill him until he comes out of seclusion. Do it! Yi Xian didn't care about the other party and directly gave the order. In an instant, Old Tree, Ghost Dome Great Emperor and Wei Zhentian attacked together. Due to the connection of evil's descent, Ghost Dome Great Emperor and Wei Zhentian had been maintaining a wonderful distance from each other. The strongest experts in the City Lord's manor were only at the undying 3rd layer. Old Tree and the other 2 were also at the undying 3rd layer. Facing an expert of the same level, they could almost instantly kill the other party. As for Yi Xian, he dealt with the 2nd stage undying fleshly body experts. Without using the Eye of Space, Yi Xian could kill one in a second. In the blink of an eye, there were many corpses flying in the air, but all of them were experts in the City Lord's manor. Ding, the host's killing intent has increased. Ding, the host's killing intent has increased. Ding, the host's killing intent has increased. Yi Xian's killing intent and the increase of the Elegy of Souls continued to increase. The City Lord of Blackwater City was probably in seclusion. Otherwise he would have come out. In that case, Yi Xian would beat him out of seclusion. Bang! 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 With the Eye of Perception, Yi Xian could clearly sense where there was a defensive formation. Therefore, he took the time to attack these places. As long as the City Lord of Blackwater City was inside, he would definitely be disturbed. Sure enough, after at least half of the people in the air were killed, a figure suddenly rushed out of a secret room in the depths of the City Lord's manor. Which scoundrel dares to disturb this City Lord's seclusion? A middle-aged man swept into the sky and loudly shouted. However, when he spread out his spiritual sense, he was overwhelmed with shock. At this time, it just so happened that a 3rd stage undying fleshly body consecrator of the City Lord's manor had his head smashed by Ghost Dome Great Emperor. His corpse was flying in the air. So strong. Although he's only a 3rd stage undying fleshly body consecrator, his battle strength is probably not below mine. This middle-aged man was the City Lord of Blackwater City. After seeing Ghost Dome Great Emperor's strength, he couldn't help but tremble. Where did these people come from? Why did they come to the City Lord's manor? What's going on? The City Lord of Blackwater City has finally come out. Ribs, go and deal with him. Yi Xian immediately gave the order to Ghost Dome Great Emperor. Ghost Dome Great Emperor immediately rushed towards the City Lord of Blackwater City. Not only that, but Wei Zhentian also quickly followed. Ghost Dome Great Emperor and Wei Zhentian had a fusion connection. Therefore, when Yi Xian gave the order to Ghost Dome Great Emperor, Wei Zhentian would also follow. The 2 of them were a combination that couldn't be separated. Seeing Ghost Dome Great Emperor and Wei Zhentian rushing towards him, the City Lord of Blackwater City's expression changed greatly. He angrily shouted, "You dare to cause trouble in my City Lord's manor? You've got guts. Fine, the formation has just finished today. I'll use you to practice." After saying that, the City Lord of Blackwater City quickly formed seals with both hands. Then, the entire City Lord's manor suddenly rose with white light. Whoosh! 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 White light pillars soared into the sky and surrounded Yi Xian and the others. There were exactly 18 of them. What the hell? Yi Xian looked at these white light pillars and was a little confused. However, he could see that this was a formation. It's just a formation. He had seen many formations, but this one should be the most powerful one he had ever seen. When these 18 light pillars soared into the sky, the entire City Lord's manor began to tremble. An aura of death spread out. This is... The consecrators of the City Lord's manor raised their brows and suddenly thought of something. 18 White Bones Formation. Rise. Chapter 1557. Are these skeletons made of white bone gold essence jade? Yi Xian looked at these skeletons and felt that it was a little extravagant. These skeletons were all 10 meters tall and were made of white bone gold essence jade. It was indeed a little excessive to use such a huge amount of resources to set up an array. However, during this period of time, the 5 Poison territory was more chaotic because of the lack of sacrificial offerings in the 5 Poison territory. The City Lord of Blackwater City was afraid that an expert would come and destroy Blackwater City, and then send them to the 5 Poison sect as sacrificial offerings. Therefore he set up this array. These skeletons are all made of white bone gold essence jade. Even a 5th degree Undying Realm expert would find it difficult to destroy them. You're all dead. After the City Lord of Blackwater City finished speaking, he quickly retreated to the side of the skeletons. These skeletons were comparable to a 5th degree Undying Realm expert. Their strength was not to be underestimated. Even a 6th degree Undying Realm expert would not dare to be careless. However, this was not a big deal for Ghost Dome Great Emperor and Wei Zhentian. You've underestimated Rib Bone and Wei Zhentian. Go break their bones. Yi Xian directly shouted and gave the order to the City Lord Mansion's reverends. As for the rest of the City Lord Mansion's reverends, they were left to the old tree and Yi Xian. Humph, boasting shamelessly. Kill them. The City Lord of Blackwater City snorted coldly. Then, 18 big white skeletons surrounded him. These skeletons could not fly, so Yi Xian only needed to fly. However, he was naive this time. When the skeletons saw him fly, they suddenly grew a pair of white bone wings. Good fellas, I'd like to see if you're really that tough. Yi Xian's face darkened. At the same time, he also directly attacked. Killing Intent Explosion. Void Flame Sword Wave. Although he was only a 1st degree Undying Realm expert, his attack power was enough to seriously injure a 4th degree Undying Realm expert. Although the white bone gold essence jade was a material for forging 8th level transcending heaven weapons, it was not the best material. It was not impossible to destroy them. Swish. The big skeletons didn't seem to know how to dodge. They hit the Nihility Flame Sword Wave, but they did have some skill. Under the attack of the Nihility Flame Sword Wave, they were unharmed. You have some ability. Yi Xian could not help but sigh. He then scanned the skeletons with his eye of insight and discovered a white bone core in their brains. It seemed this was their weak point. Since the hard way didn't work, then he would use the underhanded method. Yi Xian immediately rushed towards one of the large skeletons. Big Skeleton's weapon was a white bone club. One strike from it could probably destroy an ordinary 4th degree Undying Realm martial artist's body. If Yi Xian was hit, he naturally wouldn't be able to escape. However, the prerequisite was that he could hit Yi Xian. Hoo. At this moment, the white bone club was already swinging towards Yi Xian. But at this moment, Yi Xian's eyes suddenly flickered. Then, a spatial crack suddenly appeared in the big skeleton's head. Gotcha! A crisp sound was heard. The white bone core in the big skeleton's head suddenly shattered. This white bone core was the big skeleton's weak point. Now that it had shattered, the big skeleton instantly lost its main body. It disintegrated and fell from the sky. Seeing this, Yi Xian swiftly swept over and kept all the white bones. These white bones weren't real white bones. They were refined from white bone gold essence jade. That was why Yi Xian could swallow them. Awesome, such a huge amount of experience points. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically. He felt his aura rising sharply. At the same time, Ghost Dome Great Emperor and Wei Zhentian also felt the same. Their strength suddenly rose. No matter how strong this big skeleton was, it couldn't withstand the spatial crack's attack. In front of Yi Xian, it was just a big toy. At this moment, the Blackwater City Lord was also shocked. There's actually the Eye of Space. The Blackwater City Lord's eyes flickered. The Eye of Space could tear space. Unless one was in the reaching heaven realm, it was impossible to resist this kind of attack. Moreover, special eyes like the Spatial Eye and the Eye of Myriad weren't suitable for just anyone. Some people wouldn't be able to use the Eye of Myriad even if they obtained it. The Spatial Eye was even rarer than the Eye of Myriad, so there was no need to talk about it. He didn't expect to encounter one today. This kid's body is in the Undying Realm. I reckon he can tear space a few times. If that's the case, I'll lose 6 big skeletons. The Blackwater City Lord's heart trembled. He originally thought that the appearance of the 18 big skeletons could turn the situation around and smash Yi Xian and the others into minced meat. Now, it seemed that it wouldn't be so easy. Not only that, Yi Xian had the Eye of Space, but the Ghost Dome Great Emperor and the Green Dragon weren't weak either. They could actually fight a big skeleton alone. If this continued, even if the 17 skeletons surrounded them, it would be difficult to kill them. For these 18 skeletons, I consumed 60% of the white bone gold concentrate. The remaining 30% is used to refine the white bone cores. If these white bone cores are destroyed, the losses outweigh the gains. When the Blackwater City Lord thought of this, he made a decision in his heart. Then, his hands started to form seals rapidly. Yi Xian, who was about to make a move on the second skeleton, suddenly felt something. Below that, he saw the large skeleton that he was staring at suddenly turn around and fly towards the City Lord of Blackwater City. The other 16 large skeletons were the same as they all gathered towards the City Lord of Blackwater City. What are they doing? Yi Xian frowned. He suddenly had a bad premonition. He saw the Ghost Dome Great Emperor and Wei Zhentian rushing over and being sent flying by the big skeletons. It seemed that the Blackwater City Lord was going to play some tricks again. However, no matter what it was, he wasn't afraid. After all, he still had many trump cards that he hadn't used yet. For example, Unicorn's Descent, Sky-Shattering Meteor Slash, and Bladestorm, which had been upgraded to the level of 10,000 swords. Just as Yi Xian was surprised, the 17 big skeletons suddenly disintegrated and began to reassemble. I see. Are they trying to form a bigger skeleton? After seeing this scene, Yi Xian immediately understood. The Blackwater City Lord knew that even if all the big skeletons surrounded them, they wouldn't be able to do anything. Therefore, he wanted to form a stronger skeleton. Out of curiosity, Yi Xian didn't stop him. He wanted to see what the 17 big skeletons were going to form. However, when he saw half of it, he realized that after the 17 big skeletons disintegrated, they seemed to be forming a giant spider. White Bone Emperor Spider Go! Chapter 1558. This array was obtained by him 1,000 years ago. This time, he happened to discover a white bone gold essence mine, so he set it up. This White Bone Emperor Spider was comparable to a 6th Heaven Undying Physique Realm expert. This was the Blackwater City Lord's trump card. Facing this big fellow, Yi Xian couldn't help but reveal a fearful expression. If he were to face this White Bone Emperor Spider alone, even if he used all his trump cards, it would probably be hard to kill it. Fortunately, he still had a super trump card. Eye of Space. At this moment, those experts from the City Lord Manor were all dead. Yi Xian had also obtained their Qian Kuan rings and raised his cultivation. Old Tree, Ghost Dome Great Emperor, Wei Zhentian, kill the Blackwater City Lord. Leave this White Bone Emperor Spider to me. Yi Xian immediately said. Understood. Old Tree responded and immediately flew towards the Blackwater City Lord, who was at the 4th Heaven Undying Physique Realm. Although the 3 of them were at the 3rd Heaven Undying Physique Realm, but if they were to join forces, they would definitely be able to kill the Blackwater City Lord. As long as they killed him, this White Bone Emperor Spider would probably disintegrate. To catch bandits, first catch the leader. Of course, now that the Blackwater City Lord was protected by the White Bone Emperor Spider, it wouldn't be that easy to kill him. As for Yi Xian, his eyes flickered as he used the Eye of Revelation to observe. This 100-meter-tall White Bone Emperor Spider was formed by the 17 skeletons. Therefore, the 17 white bone cores were in the White Bone Emperor Spider's body. If they wanted to kill this White Bone Emperor Spider with their own strength, they would probably have to destroy the 17 white bone cores. At this moment, these 17 white bone cores were completely covered. Even if Yi Xian had the Eye of Revelation, he wouldn't be able to see where these 17 white bone cores were. I can only use a few more spatial tiers. At most, I can destroy a few white bone cores. I don't think I can do anything about the rest. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Originally, he wanted to directly break through the void and enter the White Bone Emperor Spider's body. However, he realized that the White Bone Emperor Spider's bones weren't right. Hence, he reckoned that the White Bone Emperor Spider's body was real. Even if he tore through space, he would only open a hole. Since that's the case, then let's fight head-on. Ghost Dome Great Emperor, Activate the undying battle soul. Yi Xian said telepathically. Hearing this, the Ghost Dome Great Emperor's eyes lit up, and his aura skyrocketed. When the Skeletal King was still alive, the undying battle soul could double the attributes of the Skeletal King and Wei Zhentian. Now that the Skeletal Monarch had mutated into the Ghost Dome Great Emperor, the undying battle soul had also evolved. The current undying battle soul could increase all attributes by 2 times. In addition to the double of fusion and the double of unicorn's deterrence, it was 4 times. At this very moment, both Ghost Dome Great Emperor and Wei Zhentian were able to exhibit 5 times their original battle prowess. Go all out. Kill. The Ghost Dome Great Emperor, whose aura had skyrocketed, held the Ghost Dome Great Sword and charged toward the Blackwater City Lord. What? The Blackwater City Lord was hiding under the White Bone Emperor spider. When he saw the Ghost Dome Great Emperor's speed, he was stunned. What kind of speed was this? In the blink of an eye, the Ghost Dome Great Emperor arrived in front of him and swung his sword. Sela! Before the City Lord of Blackwater City could react, his head was directly cut off, and then caught by Old Shoe, who flashed over. Instant kill. Although the Blackwater City Lord wasn't dead yet, what was the difference between him and death with only his head left? Immediately after, Yi Xian used the special positioning function of the void to break open a void door. Then, he controlled the Blackwater City Lord's corpse to pass through the void door and obtain the Qian Kuan ring. There weren't many things in the Qian Kuan ring, but there were quite a few that helped Yi Xian's cultivation increase by a lot. Yi Xian reckoned that as long as he devoured the White Bone Emperor spider, he would be able to break through. However, things didn't seem to be that simple. Originally, he thought that after killing the Blackwater City Lord, the White Bone Emperor spider would collapse on its own. But now, the Blackwater City Lord only had a head left. It was no different from being dead, but the White Bone Emperor spider was still alive. At this moment, it extended one of its spider legs and swept it towards the Ghost Dome Great Emperor. This attack was enough to severely injure a 5th-grade Undying Realm martial artist. Clang! The Ghost Dome Great Emperor blocked the attack with his Ghost Dome Great Sword. His body only trembled slightly. After activating his Undying Battle Soul, he wasn't a pushover. After blocking the attack, the Ghost Dome Great Emperor quickly slashed the leg of the White Bone Emperor spider. Gotcha! Another crisp sound was heard. This time, the sword was embedded at least a meter deep into the White Bone Emperor spider's leg. One should know that this leg was made of white bone gold essence jade, which was indestructible. The Blackwater City Lord was shocked. The Ghost Dome Great Emperor, who had a 3rd-grade Undying Realm physique, was actually this powerful? Kill them all! The Blackwater City Lord's head roared. It was a pity that the White Bone Emperor spider no longer obeyed him after he was left with only his head. Rumble! A rumbling sound was heard. The White Bone Emperor spider began to go berserk and destroy the entire City Lord mansion. The Blackwater City Lord's face turned gloomy. What he was worried about had happened. The White Bone Emperor spider no longer obeyed him and became a killing puppet. There was no one in the entire City Lord mansion who could do anything to it. Hee, this is truly a trap of one's own making. Yi Xian couldn't help but grin. This White Bone Emperor spider was created by the Blackwater City Lord. Now that it no longer obeyed the orders of the Blackwater City Lord, there was going to be a good show to watch. However, the Ghost Dome Great Emperor had already activated his Undying Battle Soul, and the Might Zhentian had already turned into the sky-shaking Great Sword in the Ghost Dome Great Emperor's hand. At this moment, there were 2 great swords in the Ghost Dome Great Emperor's hand. One was the sky-shaking Great Sword, and the other was the Ghost Dome Great Sword. Gotcha! Gotcha! The Ghost Dome Great Emperor swung both of his hands and the 2 great swords swept across. In an instant, one of the White Bone spider's legs was cut off. In terms of sharpness, the Ghost Dome Great Sword was actually not as fast as the sky-shaking Great Sword. After all, this was the Ghost Dome Great Emperor's weapon. After the White Bone spider's leg was cut off, it could no longer connect with the White Bone Emperor spider. Hence, Yi Xian quickly used his eyes of nature to control the White Bone spider's leg to pass through the void door. Devour! The White Bone spider's leg gave Yi Xian a lot of experience points, but it wasn't that easy to level it up. Ghost Dome Great Emperor, dismember this White Bone Emperor spider. Yi Xian transmitted his voice to the Ghost Dome Great Emperor. The Ghost Dome Great Emperor's ghost fire eyes flickered. In a flash, he arrived at the second White Bone spider's leg. Gotcha!
Gotcha!
Crisp sounds echoed. The Ghost Dome Great Emperor was like a logging machine. Although the White Bone Emperor Spider's destructive power was strong, the Ghost Dome Great Emperor's speed was too fast after activating his undying battle soul. Furthermore, he was moving around the White Bone Emperor Spider, so the White Bone Emperor Spider couldn't do anything to him.